I worked for a funeral home about 25 years ago or so. The mortician was a good friend of mine, and he offered me a job. This is a true story, by the way, even though some of the names have been changed. One day, I wasn't feeling very well, so I told my wife I was going to go to the clinic to get checked out. As I was on my way, the police, ambulance, and fire trucks were heading out of town, lights on and all the sirens blasting. I didn't really pay that much attention. As I pulled into the parking lot, my cell phone rang. It was the big one, the kind that looked like a house phone but was plugged into a cigarette lighter. I answered the call. It was my mom. "Mom, I just got to the clinic and I'm not feeling too well. Can I just call you later?" I said. She then replied, "As soon as you're done, come to the house." Then she hung up. So I checked in and began to wait in the dreaded waiting room. As I was waiting for my name to be called, I was thinking about the 60-mile round trip to my mom's house. I really didn't want to go because of how I felt. But finally, I heard my name called after what seemed like forever. The doctor gave me some meds and sent me on my way. I then gave my mom a call. "Hey Mom, can I come out tomorrow? I'm just feeling really sick." She then said, "Have your brother drive you out. It's important." Then she hung up again. Well, I couldn't find my brother, so I had to drive myself. My wife was busy. We homeschooled our children back then. When I finally got to my mom's house, it was around 4 or 5 p.m. When I got there, I asked her what was going on. She then asked, "Where's your brother at?" I couldn't find him. "I think he's with his new girlfriend, Wilma," I said. "Take a seat. I saw you in a dream." She began to speak. "You were helping a man and he was going somewhere. I'm not sure where he was going, but you were helping him," she said. "Who was or is he? Did you recognize him?" I asked. "I'm not sure who it was, but he knew you, and he also knew Leanne. In my dream he stayed with you for 3 days, and during that time, things were not going right at your house. Be safe these next few days. The Lord shows me these things for a reason. You know that." "I know, Mom. I'll be careful," I said. She expected me to stay for dinner, so I stayed. After we ate, family members came and went. My brother David came about 8 p.m., just as I was leaving back home. "Hey, did you hear about that wreck between here and town?" David said. "I've been here since about 4. What happened?" I asked. "Some guy totaled his truck down by old agency on 89. It happened around 11 this morning," he said. "The only thing I saw was the police and ambulance. Even the fire trucks were heading out of town when I was going to the hospital," I told him. After some more small talk, I told Mom that I was going home again. "Drive carefully now. Kiss the babies for me as well," she said as I was leaving. I took the long way back home just to be nosy. I thought I would come across the place where the wreck happened. A couple of police cars, a highway patrol, and a tow truck were all that was left at the site of the crash. I continued on driving, and after a few miles, I saw an old friend of mine walking down the side of the road. I stopped and offered him a ride. He put his duffel bag in and jumped in the front seat. After greeting him, I asked him where he was going. He didn't say anything. He just pointed towards the front of my car. The ride back home was rather quiet. When we got back home, to our town, I asked him if he wanted me to take him home, and he said, "Can't go home right now. Do you mind if I just camp at your place for a couple of days? I just need to get my head straight. I gotta check with Leanne first, but it'll be fine." I ran it past her. She did say it would be fine since we'd known him for a long time. We had a few trailer homes on our property, all of which were livable. After showing him one with running water, we settled in for the night. "Hey man, it's Mike. Sorry to wake you up." "What's the matter? It's 4 in the morning," I said. Mike was the mortician. "I need you to do a pickup in Great Falls ASAP. Can you go right now?" It was money that I needed, so I got ready. I went to the funeral home to get the hearse. At the funeral home, the lights turned on when I pulled up. I pulled up to Town Pump to fill up the hearse when I realized just the day before that Mike had talked about the lights. The trip was not what I expected to Great Falls. The hearse broke down. I called Mike, and he took care of everything from his end. I did get it fixed, but I didn't pick up the body until after 9 p.m. I never knew who passed. I just signed papers, loaded up the passenger. They are in a body bag or cardboard box. I can never disrespect the ones who passed on. I'm just there to make the last days on Earth as pleasant and comfortable as possible. As I left Great Falls, the sky was already dark purple. Halfway home, the gurney came loose and rolled up and hit the back of my seat. I stopped and fastened the gurney back in place. This actually happened all the way home. I think my passenger was having fun with me, but I was nervous. Mike said that he was going to meet with me, but that never happened. As I pulled around back, I opened the doors, backed in and began to unload my buddy. After I placed him in the cooler, the phone rang. So-and-so funeral home, Angelo speaking. Yeah, that's fine. I just need to let Leanne know. I haven't been home since 4 this morning. Do you need to go home and eat, or anything? Mike was asking. Nah, I fixed myself up in Great Falls, I said. Alright, see you in a bit then. The funeral home suddenly became cold and quiet. Even the sounds outside seemed to quiet down. Then the lights flickered. At the same time, I could hear doors slamming, some doorknobs turning. I don't know how long this went on, but I ran to the front door. I was out of there. I opened the door and ran smack into Mike. What the hell, Angelo? Are you okay? He said. I was shaking and trying to talk, but nothing came out. I finally calmed down enough to explain what had taken place. We chalked it up to not enough rest and being sick, so he told me to go home. On the way, I couldn't get the day's events out of my mind. I told Leanne everything. We spent about an hour praying, and I was still scared and shaken up. I couldn't sleep all that night. Every little noise would spook the hell out of me. I was really scared. The morning light was a great and welcome sight for me. I tried forgetting about it and went to go check on my old friend. I knocked on the door where we let him crash in. That's when he gave a weak reply. Come in. Leanne said, you haven't ate anything. I said, I'm just not hungry. He said, you need a ride to your house? I'm actually going back that way. Do you think you can just put me up for a couple of more days? He said. Well, we are kind of busy and things are hectic around here, I told him. I won't be any trouble, he said. Just a few more days. You have to go home and face the music, I said. I knew I had to be at the funeral home, so off I went. I arrived at work about 8:30 a.m. Mike was asleep on a couch that he had inside his office. How could he sleep in a place like this? I said to myself. He sat up as I walked in. Good morning, he said, still half asleep. Anything weird happen after I left? I asked him. Not a thing. I have a full day in Cut Bank today. I was wondering if you can handle things around here. I should be back around 3 or 4 p.m. I have to meet with the family at 4:30. I agreed to hold down the fort, even though inside of me, I really didn't want to. Fear began to build up inside of me as I saw his car drive away. As I was locking the doors, I stayed at the front for a few minutes. Nobody to talk to, and who knows what time people will show up. And that's when I remembered that the funeral home had a kitchen on the southeast side of the building. So I went there to make a pot of coffee to pry my eyes open with. As I filled the pot with water and started prepping my cup, the events of the night before began to come back into my head. Something is definitely going on. I started to remember everything that my mom taught me growing up and what these things possibly meant. Or maybe it's simply because I haven't been getting some good sleep. That's when I heard someone call out, "Hey, is anybody here? Just a minute, I'll be right with you." I grabbed my coffee trying to make it to where this person was at. More than likely someone seeking information about someone who had just passed away. As I started walking back to where the front doors were, it occurred to me that I had locked the doors before I went to make coffee. I got to the front doors, and sure enough, they were locked. What the fuck? As soon as I reacted to that, I heard a high-pitched laugh behind me in the wake room. A big open room where the bodies were put for wakes and viewing. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I felt sick to my stomach. I even started feeling lightheaded and almost passed out. "Come on, Angelo, get a grip, man," I said to myself. Just then, I heard a bunch of tools in the back room crash to the floor. The room that we cleaned and dressed the bodies at. Man, screw that. I didn't go back to find out. I ran out to my car and called my brother on my phone. David, can you come over and keep me company for a while? Just until I get everything cleaned and ready for this guy's family. I would really appreciate it. I'll be there in a couple of minutes. What's the matter? You getting scared? I just need someone to watch the front while I clean up. I lied to him. When I tell you I was scared, I really was. I know what you're thinking. Then why are you working there? You see, it's a different kind of fear than the normal fear that one experiences. I don't know if that makes sense. I even waited outside until he arrived. And even when he got there, I still felt that same feeling. I cleaned up the best that I could. What I had to do next was dust and wipe down the caskets in the display room. I had to open each one and dust it off and wipe it down, so that the family could choose one. Well, I finished and left them all open as if they were already occupied. I turned the lights off and went to have a smoke break with my brother. Do you ever hear strange things around here? David asked me with a serious look. Not really. I just go about my business. Nothing really bothers me here. I lied to him again. Well, I better get moving. I got things to see and people to do, he said jokingly. Wait a minute, and I actually have to wait until Mike gets here, I said. Come on, $5 a game, I told him. Alright, best out of 3. That's $15 a piece. And if you don't mind, do you mind getting me a cup of coffee as well? He said. I'll be right back. As I walked to the kitchen to get the coffee, I started brewing and walked back and handed him his cup and took my seat. Is Mike here, by the way? I thought I heard someone in that back room, he asked me. No, just us and our guest. We won't be here long. His family's gonna have a home wait, I told him. Huh, I swear I heard someone call you and cough, he said with a serious look on his face. Maybe he came back already. I'll go check it out, I said. As I entered the back room, it was like walking into a freezer. I thought I saw the light in the display room turned on, so I went to go check. When I went into the room, you guessed it, all the caskets were closed. Hell, forget this. I went back to where David was at and I told him that there was nobody there and that he must be hearing things or something. I didn't want to tell David what was going on because he might leave me here alone, which actually didn't help because after we played a few games he said he had to get going, and begging him to stay this time didn't help. Not only that, but the way he left. It's like he was leaving really urgently. I know he must have heard or seen something, and he didn't want to tell me. So once again, I was alone, and the fear that I felt was overwhelming. After a bit and not hearing any more noises, I began to feel a little bit better. But to be on the safe side, I went to my car and called Leanne. Hey sweetie, can you bring me some sage and sweet grass? Also my shell to smudge and eagle feather. Look in the closet, that upper shelf. My cedar should be there too. Why? What's wrong? Are you alright? And where's Mike? She asked all these questions at once. Can you just get them here as soon as you can, please? I said. She was there within a few. As I said, I didn't want to be in this place anymore. So I was just standing in the doorway as she pulled up in the van. When she got out with everything, she then said, Who else is here with you? Nobody. It's just me, I said. She then looked behind me. Who was that guy standing behind you? I guess at this point nothing really surprised me, because I didn't even react to what she said. I simply asked for my sage, and all the other items I told her to bring. Then she said, 10 minutes. I'll give you 10 minutes before I go in there. I started feeling better now that I had this with me. I started praying and smudging the building. She then came in and sat down. That's when I told her everything that happened the day before, and the night before when I brought the body. After I smudged, things did quiet down a lot, but I insisted Leanne stay with me until Mike came back. I began to think maybe I was losing my mind. I had never experienced anything like this before. As we waited, she asked me what happened with David. I thought you said he was going to be here with you. Yeah, I don't know. He said he had stuff to see and people to do, and even to this day, he won't speak of what happened here. Anyways, nothing else happened for the next few hours. Mike came back a bit after 4 p.m. The family was there, so I made them comfortable and served them coffee while we waited for Mike. Damn, Angelo, you still feeling sick? Mike was asking. Yeah, not feeling too well. I took my meds. It should have passed in a few days. I told Mike. Have they been here long? He asked. That's their first cup of coffee, I said jokingly. A way to keep track of how long someone's been waiting. Alright, thanks for sticking around, man. I definitely owe you. You should go home and have Leanne take care of you, he said. I shook the hands of the family, offered my condolences, and left. As I was pulling out of the driveway, Mike came out and stopped me. You know what? Just go ahead and take off tomorrow. I need you at 100 for the funeral. I took him up on the offer and went home. The ride home took forever. Even though Leanne left the funeral home before me, I somehow made it home before her. As I pulled into our little trailer park, it used to be on the boarding school road. I could see our oldest daughter, Olivia, outside watching over our younger children, my son Ruben, and our baby Angela. Hey Dad, did you have a good day? She said. The other two were busy playing that they didn't care that I came home. You know how kids are. Spend as much time as you can with your kids because in some time, you'll be begging for their attention. Just a normal day. Where's Mom? I thought she was with you, Olivia said. She was right behind me. The van was running low on gas, so she must have stopped at the C-store, I said to her. I think someone's in the 6th store. The dogs were all going crazy over there. The 6th store was a trailer that we stripped down to just a shell, and we built 5 rooms with 1 bathroom. I told my daughter I had a friend camping out there for a couple of days. I forgot about him, and I decided to check up on him. I knocked on the door. No answer. I called his name while knocking on his door a little bit louder. Still no answer. Maybe he left while we were gone. Just when I was about to open the door, he cracked it open, his eyes half closed from the glare of the sun. Angelo, what's up? He said in a quiet voice. Just thought I would see how you're doing, man. Been kind of worried about you, I said to him. I just gotta get my head straight before I head back home. Do you think that I can stay one more night? I'll be out of here in the morning. Sure. I don't see why not. But hey, Jason, we've known each other for so long, I said to him. Why don't you come over to the big trailer? Leanne's gonna make some soup and fry bread, I told him. As I was going back to my trailer, Leanne pulled up in the van with some groceries. I helped her with the food and went back in for a quick shower. I then went to my room to change. As I moved about my room, I couldn't help but think about everything that's happened at the funeral home. I wonder if it was the meds I was taking. Maybe because I wasn't sleeping too much, and my imagination running away with me. Anyways, I felt like I was maybe losing my mind. I then went to the bathroom, turned the shower on, and let the hot water relax my muscles. Suddenly, the air became cold. That's when I knew that whatever was at the funeral home had followed me home. This actually made me upset. How could this thing come to my place where my children feel safe? My head was covered in soap, and I couldn't get the soap off fast enough. But from the corner of my eye, I could see a shadow of a person by the bathroom sink. By this time, the soap began to burn my eyes. I closed them tightly and rinsed them off as fast as I could. Fear began to work its way into my already taxed mind, and I was too scared to open my eyes again. With a loud shout, I screamed out, "Get out! You're not welcome here." And just like that, I felt a peace inside of me. I was able to finish up my shower. I put on fresh clothes and asked Leanne and the kids to smudge and pray with me, but I couldn't find my sage and other stuff. Leanne then asked me if I left them at the funeral home. "I think I did," I said. "Why don't you and the kids get ready and come with me to pick up my things?" I asked her. "Just go yourself. You don't want to take the kids over to that place," she said. "Leanne, I don't want to scare you, but we need those things here tonight," I said in a serious tone. We all piled into the van and drove the 4 or 5 miles back into town. In no time at all, we were sitting in the van in front of the funeral home. "Are you gonna get them? What are we even doing here?" my daughter asked me. It hit me. I was staring at the funeral home for just a few minutes without saying anything. Leanne then said, "Honey, just go and get them and let's get out of here." Something easier said than done. I inhaled deeply and started towards the front doors. I dug into my pocket to find my set of keys to the place. As I stepped into the building, the doors closed behind me with a loud bang. That's when I heard that same sound from the same room as before. I couldn't move. I'm not even sure how long I stood there, but Leanne walked in and asked me if I had gotten it. She said they had been waiting for 10 minutes and she thought something happened. That's when she looked at me. It's over here. Mike must have left it right here for you. And just like that, we got it and locked the doors and left back home. As we went back home, I started getting ready to smudge our home and all of us. I'm not even sure what's happening or why this thing is following us, but it's time to get rid of it. As I got everybody together, a knock came on the door. "Who is it?" I asked. "It's me, Jason. Can I come in?" "Come in, Jason. What's going on?" I said. "I thought I smelled some sage, and I just wanted to smudge with you and your family," he said. I told him that he was more than welcome, and we all sat down to pray. When we finished, Jason said that he wasn't getting much sleep in that trailer, that he kept hearing noises and just didn't feel safe. That's also why he wanted to come over and smudge, but he said he felt a lot better and was going to go back. I then told Jason to wait for me and that I could walk him back. I then told my kids to get ready to go to bed and that I would be right back. As we walked out, I offered him a smoke. "No thanks, man," he said, looking up at the stars. I lit one up and inhaled deeply. I was tempted to clue him in on what's been going on the last 2 days, but I didn't want to burden him with anything else. Plus, I'm sure he was going through some stuff at home. But before I could open my mouth to say anything, he started saying, "Angelo, man, I haven't been able to come with grips with something that I did. I mean, I've been worried about my family, about Kim." Kim was his little girl, by the way. He then started to pour out his heart to me. He went on about his work, his relationship with Kim's mom, Anna, how he can never satisfy her lust for worldly things. His words, not mine. I lit another smoke from my half pack. The sound of his voice drifted off as I began to relive the day's events and try to make sense of everything going on. Lost in everything that was happening. I'm not sure how long we were out there for, but I couldn't get that strange feeling out of my mind and just how I had been feeling overall. That's when I almost swallowed my cigarette when my daughter Olivia shook my arm. "Dad, Mom's been calling you," she said. I then told Jason I had to head back inside and see what Leanne needed. "Thanks for listening, man. I really needed to just express that," Jason said as he went back into the trailer. "That's what friends are for. Just ask the Creator for help. He has everything in control. Rest up, and we'll see you in the morning." "Good night, Jason," I said. "Yeah, good night, man." "Hey, Dad, I think something's wrong with Jason. He doesn't seem like the Jason that I know," Olivia said. "I know, sweetie. He's been pretty quiet since I picked him up," I said. "How'd you even pick him up?" she asked me. "Grandma wanted to see me. She's having one of her warnings. I think she might be actually right this time." I gave Olivia a kiss on the forehead. "That's from Grandma," I said. She held my hand as we walked back in silence. I walked in and asked Leanne what happened. Leanne then put her finger to her mouth to tell me to be quiet. "Alright, y'all, let's put Barney on. You all can watch Barney for a while before bedtime," Leanne told the kids. "I don't want to watch Barney. Can I just go to my room?" Olivia said. "Alright, but leave your door open and listen for your brother and sister," Leanne said. Leanne then led me to our room. Nice, some action, I thought to myself. I was right, but it wasn't the action I expected. From our room, you could see into the trailer next to ours, the big one. "I don't want to scare the kids, but you need to see this," Leanne said as she turned off the lights and pulled back the curtains. I then looked out the window and into the big trailer. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Just look," she said. She later told me that she was paralyzed and unable to speak as she saw the change on my face, not wanting to look again herself. I too was frozen in fear as I looked into a window of the trailer that was next to ours. I could see the window to a room. I'm not even sure how to describe the scene before me. I want to say shadows, but they were more solid than a shadow. It almost looked like shadows were moving inside of there. That's when 3 loud bangs on the back door flooded me with a new kind of fear. Our room was a partition built on the trailer that we lived in, and the back door was in our room. The dogs were hiding underneath our porch. They were more scared than I was. I could actually hear them crying and whimpering. I looked out the back door. Nothing. Nobody. Just silence. The little ones came screaming into our room, crying, just pointing down the hallway towards the living room. Leanne scooped them up just as Olivia came rushing into our room as well. "Mom, Dad, what's going on in here? Are you guys fighting?" she said. I reached out to close the curtains, but before I could close them, Olivia let out a scream. She was pointing at the window. I jumped up and looked but saw nothing. We then gathered up the kids into the living room. Everybody was crying and screaming at the same time. I knew I had to do something to try and calm down the kids. "Where's the smudge?" I was asking with no answer. I asked my little ones what happened. Ruben, my son, said, "Somebody was at the door trying to take my sister outside." It was then that I noticed our big female dog, Sandy. She was inside with us. Somehow her being with us made me feel safe. "Ruben, what do you mean someone? Was it Jason?" I asked. "No, he doesn't look like Jason," he said, holding his sister close to him and his mom. "Sandy chased him away," Ruben said. I went back to my room to get a flashlight and my .357 handgun. "Leanne, you and the kids stay in the living room." I locked the back door and pushed the dresser and bed against it. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I'm gonna go get Jason and go over to the big trailer," I said. "Lock the door behind me. Don't let anybody in, even me." "What do you mean, even you?" she said. I showed her my key as I walked out the door. As I made my way towards the 6th door, Jason was outside already. He had a big stick in his hands. I heard some noises and then I saw someone looking in your kitchen window. You're not gonna believe this, but when I got close enough to smack him with my stick, he just disappeared, he told me. I told Jason to stand guard by my trailer to keep a lookout for Leanna and the kids. "Where are you going?" Jason asked. "To our big trailer. I thought I saw someone over there," I said. As I got closer, that's when I could hear a bunch of people talking all at once, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. It was like a big crowd of people getting louder and louder. I could still hear them talking when I began to insert the key and turn the doorknob. As soon as I opened it, I expected to see a bunch of people, but when I pushed the door open, it was dark and quiet. All I could hear was the low hum of the fridge. I still went inside. You see, this big trailer was just a big kitchen with tables and chairs. We used it for our children's school as well. I walked in, expecting the worst. When I got about halfway in, the door closed behind me, and that familiar feeling I had felt once too many times the last 2 days came upon me again. I could feel eyes all around me. In the small hallway leading to the bathroom, I felt pure evil, something I had never felt before or since. I was about to go down the hallway. Instead, I turned and looked out the window straight into my bedroom. I was now standing where I had seen the shadows moving earlier. As I looked into our bedroom, I saw somebody. Well, something I'm never gonna forget. I couldn't shout to warn my wife and children. It had holes where you would expect eyes, but when it looked at you, you just knew it could see as well. I broke out in a sweat and felt like throwing up. It had me in some kind of spell. I couldn't move. It smiled at me and turned to go into the living room. I tried to will my feet to move, but my own body wouldn't respond to what my brain was telling it to do. Even my mouth couldn't speak. I tried shouting at Jason, but my whole body shut down and gave in to fear. It was like I was just watching myself. "Move, your family's in there with that thing," I said to myself. That's when I felt movement in my hands. Then I saw a bright flash of light, followed by a loud blast. I somehow fired the pistol I had in my hand, missing my right foot by inches. That forced my feet into action, and within seconds, I was at my front porch pounding on the door. Leanna and Olivia were on the inside. leaning with their combined weight against the door, determined not to let anybody inside. "Babe, it's me. Move away from the door." With that, she knew it was me. I flung the door open. Ruben was standing behind them, crying. I rushed past Ruben, looking for my baby girl, Angela. That's when Leanne screamed, "Angela!" She kept repeating as we all ran into the living room. We met Jason coming down the hallway. He was carrying Angela out of the room that she shared with Olivia. Leanne threw her hands around Angela, asking her if she was okay. Angela wouldn't let go of Jason, as Leanne tried to pull her away from him. "Come here, baby. Mommy's got you," Leanne said as she tried to take her from Jason again. Meanwhile, Olivia kept her little brother close by her side. We all then went to the living room to try to pull ourselves together. Jason sat on the couch with Olivia and Ruben. Leanne sat in the easy chair holding Angela's hand. I went to close the front door, locked it, and returned inside. "Did you guys see it? What do you..." I was cut off by the barking of our dogs outside, right at our front door. I noticed Sandy, and looking at Jason straight into the eyes. "Jason, how did you get in here?" No response. "Jason, how did you get in here?" I said as I slowly cocked the gun in my hand. "I thought I saw someone in your back room. The door was locked, so I went to the back door and couldn't get in. When I looked through the window, something was in there moving to the front rooms, so I crawled in through the window," he said. "I then saw the baby girl run to that room. I grabbed her, and that's when we met in the hallway." My heart was pounding as he explained. I turned to get my smudge in my room. I found it exactly where I had left it and went back to the others. "Before we do anything, is everybody fine?" I asked. "Are you gonna smudge again? I don't think that's gonna work. I mean, how many times have you tried that stuff? And this thing is still here. We need to pray to God," Leanne said. "Whatever this thing is messing with me since I got sick. I'm not sure what to do. I'll try anything," I told Leanne, but lit up the smudge anyway. I was thinking Leanne expected me to pray. Instead, she started praying in a loud voice. When she started to pray, that's when the dogs went crazy outside, barking through their noses. A couple by our back door and a couple in front. The water in the bathroom turned on by itself. Sandy ran in the hallway and started to bark like crazy and snapping like somebody was there. The lights turned on and off as Leanne prayed louder and louder. Looking back, it was almost like one of those scenes from those demonic possession movies out in Hollywood. But this was the real deal. Leanne continued praying, rebuking this evil spirit, commanding it back to hell, back to where it came from. I then pulled Jason aside and told him we needed to do something. How do you or what do you do against a ghost, a spirit, or whatever this thing is? That's when we heard the sounds of something, like somebody was running on top of our trailer. I felt useless. I was supposed to be the protector of my family, the brave one, the strong one, but instead, this thing reduced me to the state of being a kid again, thinking like one. At least it helped in this. I shouted out, "Call the police. Are you serious? They'll think we're crazy. They're not gonna believe us," Jason said. Suddenly, it became quiet. Leanne and the kids were still praying. Leanne looked up at me. The look in her eyes was telling me, "What are we gonna do?" We all jumped as the phone began to ring. I picked up the receiver and put it in my ear. It was Mom calling, but I couldn't hear her very well. Mom, I can't even hear you. Mom, you got a bad connection. Hello? Hey," I tried to say to her. Then, a bunch of static. The phone crackled a little bit. Then it went dead. Don't tell me. The phone died. "Call her back," Leanne said. I then hanged up the phone, picked it up, and put it in my ear again. Except this time, there wasn't even a dial tone. "What's going on? Did she answer?" I shook my head no, not even a dial tone. I said, but I gave it another try. Still no dial tone. "That's right, the car," I thought. "I can use the phone there," I told her. I dug in my pocket for my keys and started out the door. "You guys better come with me," I said. Jason went out first with Angela, Ruben, Olivia, and Leanne all followed Jason. Even our 4 other dogs formed like an escort around us, with Sandy bringing up the rear. We felt safe with the dogs at our side. One safe inside the car. I told Leanne that we should go spend the night in Browning. She agreed. What about a change of clothes? Olivia, who was very quiet up to that point, spoke up. I don't want to go back in there, Mom. I'm not going in there. In the big trailer was our washer and dryer as well. I have some of our clothes clean and folded in that laundry basket on top of the dryer, Leanne said. The child in me cried. I really didn't want to go back in there. I handed Leanne my pistol, and I told her I would be right back. She turned to Jason. Jason, can you please go with Angelo? Please? He didn't say anything. He just opened the car door and got out. Just grab the whole basket. You don't need to grab anything else, she called out as we walked to the big trailer. Man, when I came in here, it felt strange. And this is from where I saw it. Whatever the fuck this thing is, we need to hurry and get it, I told him. When we got to the door, Jason stopped me from going inside. You wait here, man. I'll get the basket, Jason said. I hit the light switch, and the big kitchen lit up. I could still feel the evil inside. We walked into the laundry room and came out with the clothes without incident. I turned off the lights and we went back to the car. That's when Jason stopped and looked at me with a strange look. What's going on, Jason? I said. Angelo, I'm not going with you, man, he said. Jason, I can't leave you here alone, not after what just happened. What if it comes back? I told him. Listen, you have to level with me. What's going on, man? Once again, he said, You just won't understand. I just locked myself in my room until morning. After going back and forth for a while, seeming like he was set on his choice to stay. And the only reason I agreed was because I saw Sandy licking his hand. You should let Sandy sleep in your room. She's a good watchdog. And he said thank you. On the way to Browning, Leanne was upset at me for leaving Jason behind. He didn't want to come in, honey. I tried to tell him to come with us, but he wouldn't. I was trying to explain. She then picked up the phone and said, You need to call your mom. We should also get a room and put the kids to bed. Then I'll give her a call, wondering if I should go back for him. Leanne, what do you think? Should we go back for Jason? I expected her to say yes, but before she could answer, all the kids started to cry out. Please, don't go back there. Let's just stay here. We checked into a hotel. After paying for our room and getting the kids in bed, Leanne picked up the phone and called my mom. She then began to tell her everything that's been going on since my trip to Great Falls, up to our current situation. As she spoke with her, I paced the floor thinking about Jason. There was something that kept telling me to go back, and to insist on him either going home. His family must be worried about him. It wasn't the first time he spent a day or two over here with us, except this time, it just felt different. I started putting my jacket back on. Leanne told my mom to hold on for a minute and said to me, Where are you going? I need to go back out there and make Jason go home, or at least come with us or something. I don't feel right just leaving him there, I told her. As I walked out, I could hear her telling my mom that I was going back for Jason. And so I did. As I drove past the funeral home, I swear I saw a silhouette of a person in one of the windows. Screw you. I then started down the boarding school road. I could see our place. It looked like all the lights were on in all the trailers. Some of them were blinking, except for the one that Jason was in. There was no light. I wasn't about to go back into any of the trailers to see what was going on when I got there. Just as I pulled in, all the lights went out. That's when my phone began to ring. It was Leanne. Fuck, I shouted to myself, my heart pounding again. Where are you? She said. I just got here. I'm gonna pull around to the 6th door and honk. I don't want to get out of the car, I told her. Listen, your mom said she's been trying to reach us for a couple of days, except that every time that she calls, someone ends up laughing and hangs up the phone, or they just whisper stuff real fast. She also said that she's been having nightmares. She hears the same whispering, like 2 or 3 people whispering at once, to where you can't even understand what's being said. As she was telling me what Mom said, I was honking the horn to get Jason's attention. What else did she say? Did she say why she was calling in the first place? I asked. Yeah, she wanted to know who the person was that you picked up. The body. She wants to talk to you. And get this. She also said, don't let Jason leave your place. I can't leave him out here alone. What if something happens to him? Whatever this thing is, it's out to get someone. Leanne, this stuff doesn't happen for no reason, I said. Plus, he's not even coming out. I need to see if he's okay, I told her. Before I got out of the car, I noticed the dogs weren't around. I rolled the window down and called to them. Sandy, come here, girl. 3 times I called. Whenever I would call her, she would just come running. I left the lights of the car pointing towards Jason's door. Jason, it's me, I shouted again as I walked to the 6th door. The headlights of the car cast my shadow in front of me as I approached the door. I heard dogs barking, dogs in the distance, but I couldn't tell if they were our dogs. When I got to the door, that icy cold feeling came over me again, except this time, something was different. An awful smell filled the air, the smell of human waste and burning matches. The hair on the back of my neck and arms stood on end. I felt nauseous. Jason, I yelled again. Jason, are you in there? I said. I tried the door. It was locked. I then reached for the key. Then I realized that they were on the keychain in the car. I stepped off the small porch and half ran back to the car to get the key to open the door. When I got to the car, the phone started ringing again. Is he coming in? Remember what your mom said. Don't let him leave. Leanne told me just as I looked up at the door. What I saw next was a shadow on the trailer, as if someone was standing between the car and the front of Jason's door. I dropped the phone and put the car in reverse. I was on the road in no time flat. I stopped on the road and shouted back towards the trailers for Jason, honking the horn as well. Every time that I shouted Jason's name, someone would shout it back. It seemed like an echo of my voice. I heard Leanne speaking, so I picked up the phone. She wanted to know what was going on. I told her what happened, and she said to just come back. At this point, I felt terrible for leaving Jason there, and where the hell are my dogs at? When I got back to the hotel, Leanne didn't want to know what happened. She needed to know, and after explaining to her, she said, why don't we just try to get some rest and try to figure all this out in the morning? She talked me into it, since I hadn't slept well. I ended up knocking out when I hit the pillow. Most of the day was gone when I woke up. Leanne said she paid for another night at the hotel. The little ones seemed to be their playful selves. Olivia was still asleep. I quickly got dressed and told Leanne I couldn't believe she didn't wake me up. She then said, I've been calling back home. I thought Jason might answer. Maybe he left back home when I got there. It's daytime, and the veil is not so thin out here during the day. So I decided that I was going to confront Jason to see what's going on. Because apparently, according to my mom, there's also something going on with him. So the first thing I did was go back home and see if Jason was fine. It must have taken me about 10 minutes to get there. I found him in the room, sitting, staring out the window. Jason, are you good? I gave him a little shake. He then finally said, yeah, just a little stiff. You got some calls from Mike, he said. Leanne's been trying to reach you all day, dude. She said you weren't answering the phone, I said. I was over in the big trailer in the morning. I didn't answer the phone. I just heard the messages that he sent, he replied. Jason, do you want to go home now? I asked him. He just shook his head no and laid down. I never told him what Mom said, and I didn't even ask him again. I was going to tell him, or asking him what's going on, but I figured that he might just tell me, eventually. I went to my trailer to get some stuff for Leanne and the kids. I went inside and turned on the answering machine. 3 messages from Mike. He asked if I could return his call, that he was extra busy. The second one, he was begging me to call him back ASAP. And last, that the family of the motor vehicle accident guy decided to move the funeral to that afternoon, and that he was way behind, so I called him back. All of a sudden, it got icy cold, so I took my ass out of there as fast as I could. As I left, I just put the phone down. I didn't even hang it up. I just wanted to get out of there. I I went to see if Jason wanted to go home or just take a ride with me. Then I remember what Mom told Leanne. Not sure what to do. I ended up asking Jason anyway. Nah, it's kind of peaceful out here. Think I'll stick around for a while, he said. Peaceful? Were you even here last night? If that's peaceful to you, Jason, I hate to be around you when you think things aren't being peaceful. I walked back to the car and pulled away. On the way back, I picked up the phone and tried Mike again. So-and-so funeral home. This is Mike speaking. Can I help you? Hey Mike, it's me, Angelo. What's going on? I asked him. Hey Angelo, everything's crazy over here, man. Can you come over? I know you're supposed to have the day off. I really need you. The funeral for the guy in the MVA was scheduled for tomorrow, but the family moved it up for today. I can be there in about an hour, I said. Alright, it would be great if you can be here sooner though. Just try to get here as soon as you can. Sounding disappointed, I hung up and gave Leanne a phone call. Hey sweetie, Mike needs me to go in today, but I want to go see Anna. Alright, I sent the kids out to go see your mom. I had David and Wilma pick them up, she said. Alright, I'll be there in a few. I then hung up. When I pulled into the parking lot of the hotel, Leanne was in the small lobby waiting. We got some coffee on the way to Anna and Jason's house. Does she know we're coming over? Leanne asked. I didn't think about calling her. I just thought she should know Jason was at our place. I'm sure she's kind of worried about him, despite whatever they got going on. I also thought that maybe we could just go over to see if she knows what's bugging her husband. Their car wasn't in the driveway, so we kept on driving. This town isn't very big. If you carefully plan your way, you can see the whole town in one drive-through. We spent about 15 minutes looking for Anna without any luck. Leanne suggested that we drive to Jason's mom and dad's place. Jim, who is Jason's dad, was outside working on his truck. We both got out of the car and went up to Jim. Well, howdy, what brings you guys here? Are y'all looking for my son as well? We're actually looking for Anna. Just wanted to talk to her. Well, you just missed her. She dropped Kim off 10 minutes ago. Said she was gonna go look for Jason. I was about to tell Jim that Jason was at our place when Leanne turned and started walking to the car. You know what? I think I know where she is, I said to Jim. Well, if you see my son, tell him to come back home. Jim said, Will do, sir. Thanks for everything. We got in the car and pulled out of their driveway. Where are we going now? I said. All Leanne said was to drive out to Last Star Homes. So that's where I went. The funeral home was on the way, so I told Leanne that I wanted to stop and check in on Mike. When we got there, Leanne said that she would wait in the car. I walked into the office and called out Mike's name. Angelo, is that you? Yeah, it's me, I said as I followed his voice to the kitchen. He was having a cup of coffee and a donut. Did you already come and get started? I actually wasn't expecting you for a while, he said. I just wanted to make sure you're going to be fine for a bit. Leanne and I are looking for a friend right now. It's kind of important, I said just as Leanne walked in. I found her. She's at Jim's place. We told her we were looking for her. She said if we came back or called, she would wait for us back home. Sorry, Mike. How you been? Leanne said. But I can pull through as long as you give me my help back. Knowing Leanne was about to drag me out. I'll be back as soon as I can, I said as we rushed out. We ran back to the car and hurried back to Anna's house. How did you know where she was back at Jim's? I asked. Leanne picked up the phone and waved it to me. She then said, Where are you going to tell Anna? Well, I'll just let her know that Jason's at our place and see what's going on. He won't tell me. Anna might know. The rest of the way to their house was silence. Their car was in the driveway, still running. We knocked on the door. The door's open. Anna shouted over the radio. Hey you guys, I was just over at Jason's dad picking up Kim. Jim said you guys were looking for me. What's up? I spoke up and asked Anna if things were alright with Jason and herself. We had an argument the other day. He stormed out. I haven't seen him since then. Did he come over and cry on your shoulder? I know both of you are close, she joked. No, he didn't, but he did say that he was worried about you and Kim, and that he was also worried about his family. I just thought that you might know what's going on, I asked her. We were fighting about money, as always. I got really mad at him, then he up and left. I haven't talked to him, she continued. Why? When did he tell you that? She asked. He told me a few days ago. I was trying to think of an excuse to leave when Leanne spoke and changed the subject. The other reason was to see if you were going to bring Kim out to Olivia's birthday party. Just let me know. I'll be there, she said. I better get this guy to work, or we might start fighting over money as well, Leanne said. They both started laughing. I told Leanne to drop me off at the funeral home. I then gave Leanne a kiss before she drove away. Be careful out there now. Try not to be alone, she said. I walked in. Mike was loading things we needed at the funeral site. Hey Mike, I'm back. What do you need me to do? I asked Mike. Just help me load everything in the Suburban. You drive the pallbearers. I'll drive the hearse. We left the funeral home. I knew the routine. I went to the gravesite. Mike went to the home and would drive the body to the church. Meanwhile, I would set everything up at the gravesite. I finished up and met Mike at the house and waited for the man. Everything seemed to go along good so far. No eerie feelings, no chills, no cold air, no evil sounds. Mike then waved me into the house to help carry out the flowers and flower stands. When I entered, I felt that cold feeling again. I looked around at the friends and family to see if they noticed anything wrong. Nobody seemed to notice. The pallbearers were forming a human chain and passed different types of flower arrangements. After the last person said their goodbye and went outside, Mike and I started to close the casket. I was sweating by then, shaky, and a little queasy. Some of the ladies were crying, a mournful cry. It was a sad moment for them. I could feel their pain. Mike then put the casket key in the casket and locked the covers in place. I thought I heard a knock coming from inside of the casket. I looked at Mike, expecting him to be in the shock that I was in, but he just continued to go about his work. Mike, did you hear something? I asked. He shook his head no. Let's focus on getting done here. Be professional, he said without looking at me. He knew I was somewhat scared, ever since the other night. Everyone was in their vehicles or getting inside, while the pallbearers loaded up the casket. I got behind the wheel of the Suburban as the pallbearers went in. Surprisingly, they were in a good mood, cracking jokes and overall cheerful. Then one of them spoke up and started to talk about the night before at the wake. Did you guys hear what happened? He said. Man, I was there. What went on? Said somebody else. Just a few of us were up last night. Some guy walked in. Nobody knew him, but he knew us by name. And he kept asking for somebody named Jason, and if we knew where he was. Jason? Somebody else said. Jason who? The only Jason I know is that guy married to Anna, he said to the others. We got to the church before I could hear any more. I waited outside the church, smoked a few cigarettes. This shit is unreal, I was thinking to myself. Just then, Leanne pulled up. In a small town like this, everybody knows where everybody is at. Your mom's on the phone. She wants to talk to you, Leanne said. I went down the steps of the church to talk on the phone. Hey Mom, how are my cats doing? Are they good? I asked her. Don't worry about them. They're good. But listen up. Your friend Jason, he's in big trouble. You need to talk some sense into him before he leaves your place. He didn't leave yet, did he? She asked. No, at least I don't think so. But what kind of trouble? I asked her. It's not from this world. It's from that other place I told you about when you were a kid. When you're done, go to him. I'll be praying for you, my son. Be strong. Don't waver. Don't give in to fear. I know you don't believe the way that I do, but we worship the same God. You just call him Creator. I call him Jesus. I love you. Now be strong. With that, she hung up. What did she say? Leanne asked. Most likely the same thing she told you, I said. She didn't tell me anything. She just said to bring the phone to you. I then told her what Mom said. The service was over, and people began to come out of the church. The funeral was long even though the ride was short. I started to feel uneasy again and didn't know why. Then, that's when I saw him, just standing there, looking at me. He didn't even blink. I tried to walk around and get a better look at him, but every time that I moved, it was always on the other side of the crowd. I was thankful that the graveside service wasn't very long. After people started leaving, we began to load up all the equipment back into the Suburban. I followed Mike back into the funeral home, and then I unloaded everything. As I was putting stuff away, Mike was talking to me, but my mind was somewhere else. "Angelo, are you listening?" Mike asked me. "Man, I'm sorry. I was thinking about something else," I said. "I guess so. What's eating at you?" I told him that I would let him know once I figure everything out. "Man, why are you so busy anyway? What's been going on? It didn't seem like you needed me in the first place." He then pointed to the cooler and said, "We have another guest. Can you stay and give me a hand?" "Mike, I can't, man. I need to get home. A friend of mine is in trouble," I said, feeling a bit guilty. "But come first thing in the morning," Mike said. We said our goodnights and I went to the office to call Leanne. She picked me up. We went to the room and talked about what to do. I decided to go home and talk to Jason, and Leanne was going to wait with the children. I did a lot of searching myself as I drove home. Once I got there, I unlocked the big trailer. I could hear echoes of the night before. I spotted the location in the floor as I stood in the spot, just like the night before. When I looked into my room, trying to picture that thing in my mind, then it hit me. That thing that was in my room, it was the one at the gravesite today. That's when I ran to the 6th door. Jason was exactly the same as I left him, laying on his bed. "Jason, we need to talk, man." He didn't argue with me. "Let's go over to the big trailer." We went over and sat down at one of the tables. "Jason, man, you need to spill the beans. What happened? I'm not gonna take no for an answer," I said. He just sat there, not saying anything. All he talked about was his family, about Kim and Anna, how he loves his family, how they always been there for him. "Jason, dude, I need to know exactly what you did." He looked at me. "I never hurt anyone, if that's what you're worried about," he said. "Well, do you want to be with your family? Do you want everything to work out for you? Your family is worried about you. Anna and Kim are looking for you. Do you love them?" "I always have," he said. "Let's go home. No matter what's broken, you can fix it," I said to him. "Home," he mumbled. "I'll take you right now, Jason," I said. "Someone's looking for you all over town. I think he was here last night. I'm not even sure what stopped him, and I don't know if we can stop him if he comes back," I told him. Mind you, at this point I'm practically begging him. When he finally said, "Alright, let's go." We got into the car. I was actually surprised. As we got into town, I told him I was going to make one stop. We pulled into the funeral home. I was about to go in and talk to Mike when Jason said, "Hey, Angelo, I know you're a busy man, so I really appreciate everything, hanging out with me and listening." He then walked up to me. He hugged me, and then he said, "Thanks for everything. I'm good now. I think I'm gonna walk home from here. That way you don't gotta drive me." "Are you sure, man?" I said. He looked at me and said, "Yeah, I'm good now. Thanks for everything again." I then told him to take care and be good. I then went inside. "Hey, I thought you went home. You know the guy that we put in the ground today? Well, he crashed trying to avoid hitting the guy we have in our back room. He didn't swerve in time though. Still ended up hitting him. They found him in some ditch last night. The highway patrol went to investigate the crash, and that's when they found him. We walked to the back room, and there he was, laying on the table. It was Jason. I'm a retired Navajo Ranger. There's a few stories that I have about the famous Skinwalker. I have 31 years in law enforcement. I have worked everything that you can imagine: search and rescue, criminal investigations, and all sorts of crimes. However, some of the calls that I took on the REZ weren't always about stolen trucks or missing people. Now keep in mind, we are separate from the Navajo police. who provide the public safety aspect of the Navajo communities. The Rangers provide enforcement and protection over the resources of the nation, and we are modeled after the National Park Service Rangers. Now, we all heard the stories, people seeing things, weird tracks in the sand, strange lights, and sometimes stories of Yenagloshi. I have actually came across a few people that don't believe in them, but my partner and I were assigned to take every strange report serious, to investigate them like any other crime scene. No matter what they tell you, always treat people with respect, because the moment that they suspect that you don't believe them, no matter how quote-unquote crazy it sounds, they'll just stop talking. I have seen things that I can't explain. Tracks 5 feet apart up a 40-degree slope. Lights that will completely drain our radios. However, nothing has ever put fear in me like the case that I'm going to tell you about. It started with a man who lived on the edge of the REZ. He called in terrified, saying that he thought he had killed somebody or something. He told me that right after sunset, he heard a noise outside his home. It wasn't loud, but it sounded like an animal was digging through something. When he stepped outside, he saw something moving near a shed that he had built. It was hunched over, moving around in the dirt, and all over the junk that he kept stacked there. At first he thought it was maybe just a stray, or a coyote, so he grabbed a 2x4 and walked towards it. He was planning on scaring it off. He said he was somehow able to sneak up behind it. As it kept digging, its back was rising and falling. When he got close enough to see the coarse patches of fur, it also had gray-white skin cracked like old paint. It looked like a dirty, half-dead stray tearing up his stuff, so he just swung with the 2x4. The first hit connected. This coyote, or dog, knocked into the pile of broken boards and buckets beside it. He couldn't see where he was striking after that. It was a chaotic scene. Dust, dirt, everything bursted into the air with every swing. Objects were falling over. There was a bunch of powder upwards like ash, and he just kept swinging, not knowing if he was hitting the animal or if he was just hitting his own stuff. After a few seconds, he started yelling, "Get out of here," trying to scare it off. By then the whole area was a mess. There was stuff everywhere, and the air around him was dusty. Then, he heard it. A whimper. He said he must have hit it in the leg, dragging itself a few feet away, and in that moment, he swung one more time. The coyote, dog, it fell into the dirt. He was sure that he had killed it, so he dropped the 2x4, wiped the dust off his face, and went back inside to get his wife. They went back out. When they did, the body was gone. No tracks, no blood, just the smell. He then said that maybe it limped away. Had it tricked him? He stood there confused, looking around. She got mad at him, and so they just went back to bed. That night, the man got sick, worse than any flu, vomiting, cramping, diarrhea, fever, and by midnight, he couldn't stand. His wife and his son ended up dragging him into their truck, and they drove almost 100 miles through the dark to reach a medicine man, somebody who they knew would be available at that time. The guy told me that the medicine man took one look at him and said, "You inhaled the bad medicine." I guess before I continue on with the story, I should explain how bad medicine works around Skinwalkers. Those who have ever had an encounter with one will know that it's nothing to mess around with. So don't get your hopes up. It's not a how-to. If anything, it's to help you know what to watch out for. This powder is created and used by those who practice the evil way. Its purpose is to harm, weaken, or kill the intended person on a physical, emotional, and even spiritual level. It's not something that people ever handle, talk about, or even think about it, since it's tied to death, taboos, and evil desires. This powder is said to be connected to death. People say it comes from corpses or graves, even certain animal parts, ash or dirt tied to death, disease, or places with negative energy, like where somebody died. All of this is put together. And the scariest part is that it's not just poison, it's a curse. And it is considered fatal if a medicine man doesn't look into it. Why do you think they say to burn your trash? Don't sweep at night. Don't accept any used items. Bad medicine works by having items that contain your DNA, like hair, nails, clothes, and that's why you need to burn your trash. The medicine man explained that when the man hit that skinwalker, all the dust from its body rose up. This poison, powder, whatever you want to call it, he inhaled the curse, and the medicine man told him that if he had come a few hours later, he would have been dead by the morning. The medicine man ended up singing a few songs. He gave him some water mixed with something else, and the man said that it felt like a knife twisted in his gut had been just pulled out. After some time, he could stand up again. They had also brought their son with them, who waited in the truck as he was asleep. Well, he told us later that when his parents went into the Hogan, he saw somebody else going behind them, a tall, dark figure. Nobody else saw it. When the ceremony ended, the man walked out alive, but the medicine man told him to never speak its name again. I actually took that on the report myself, and when I filed it, I called it what it is: attempted homicide by some unknown mean. You see, out here on the Navajo Nation, witchcraft is not just folklore, it's a crime, and it will kill you. Over the years, I learned something. You don't gotta believe in these things for them to notice you. Every time we talk about skinwalkers, strange things happen. Electronics fail. Animals begin to act nervous. And sometimes, you just get this feeling that something is gonna happen. So when I finish telling you this, I do what I always do. I'm gonna go smudge, because once you start speaking their name, they start listening. And what about the boy? Who is it that he saw? He didn't explain to me, and I came to the conclusion that whoever had cursed this man was following him or trying to interrupt the ceremony that went on, which is why the boy saw a tall shadow following behind him. And if you didn't know, children are more sensitive to spiritual things at a young age. So do be mindful next time if your kid or your baby is crying or looking towards the corner of a room. Let me know if you want to listen to another experience that I have similar to this. I have over 3 decades of service. I am a retired Navajo Ranger. This one you might not think it's about skinwalkers, but I believe it is. And it's not just your typical skinwalker story. I truly think that this person was going to discover something that we shouldn't even talk about. Stuff that you have never heard about. Let me just tell you the whole story. One of these cases came from a small community near Lower Greasewood, Arizona. This call came from a rancher, a white man married to a Navajo woman. He raised horses out there, far from the highway, no neighbors close enough. He told me that night after night, he would see a glowing object, an orb, drift across the sky, and just vanish straight into the side of a mesa. Not over it, but like, into it. At first his wife thought that maybe he had been out in the sun too long, and she didn't believe him. So he bought himself a good camera in Flagstaff, and he started taking pictures. Sure enough, the light was real. A bright orb. After that, even his wife came out to watch. They would sit together out in the front, waiting for it to appear. Always the same path, diving straight into a mesa, like if there was an entrance to something. One night, he said he was inside his home when the horses started blowing. If you ever been around horses, You know that sound? Fear. The man grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. He said the air smelled weird. On the far side of the corral was something. That same object. It was glowing. Orange. He didn't know what it was. And like most of us raised on the land, when you see something strange near your animals, that's your livelihood. You defend them. He had a pellet gun in his hand. For all you young folks, a pellet gun is quiet, it's cheap, and it won't injure any livestock, and it scares off strays including coyotes. That's all he carried. He raised it, took aim, and fired. The sound it made was weird. It was something else. Like if the air had just snapped, the light jolted, shot straight up, and reappeared half a mile away. Then, it was gone. But if you thought this was weird or creepy, well, from that night on, his ranch was never quiet again. He said he would hear footsteps circling his house. Coyotes could be seen from a distance. Sometimes he said he would hear people talking outside his home. And in the middle of the night, whenever he would go check, nobody was there. His wife called it bad medicine, the one that Skinwalkers use on the REZ. So the man called me one morning. His voice was shaking, and he said, "They're here every night. Whatever I shot, whoever these things are communicating with, I shouldn't have." He sounded very nervous. I told him I would be out there as soon as I could. We went out there. We wrote everything down. We took pictures. The whole place. The animals. But nothing we wrote down came close to explaining what was happening. We also found some circles in the dirt. We didn't find any footprints. Nowhere. Inside one of those circles was a small pile of ash. It was warm. No grass. No charcoal. No wood. Just fine gray powder. Like something had been burned without flame. Near the far fence line, we found a cluster of rocks arranged in weird shapes. His wife, she wouldn't go near it. She kept her distance, shaking her head, and she kept saying that it wasn't for us to touch. And the horses, I have seen animals scared before, but not like that. They didn't even want to come near us, and they didn't want to be touched. They didn't want to go near the north end of the corral at all. One of them kept raising its head and blowing, staring at a spot that we couldn't see anything in. Disturbance, unknown, possible ceremony site, signs of something that shouldn't be there. Within a few weeks, he packed up everything that he owned. He sold the ranch and left. Not just out of town, not just off the REZ. He drove all the way to the East Coast. When I asked him why he went so far, I figured if I kept going west, I would just end up right back where it happened. I told a friend later, he would have kept going, but he ended up hitting the ocean. I had worked murders, suicides, and disappearances, but this case was just very creepy. I think whatever he saw that night, he started spending a bunch of energy and time looking at it. I think that he disturbed something, whatever was going on. I'll tell you some secrets and what I think happened. That light, or the lights that he kept seeing, were ghost lights, spirits that evil medicine man and skinwalkers use. And I know you hear it. Where does all this stuff get done? Up in the mesas, in caves, away from people. So if you see something, just leave it alone. The mesas have long memories. And if you ever see a light or something glowing around you, pray that it doesn't notice you. Many people don't know where the fear comes from. The one that strikes you when you're about to get out of bed for the bathroom or for a drink of water. Both children and adults know this feeling. Adults are more likely to ignore it and get a glass of water or go to the bathroom. But children, on the other hand, They couldn't tell you why, or what was waiting for them if they got out of bed in the middle of the night, but they're always filled with fear, at least most children. Must have been about 4 years old. I slept down the hallway from my parents with the bathroom being in between our rooms. My mom left the hall light on for me, and she would leave my door cracked open as I was scared of the dark and would often wake up to use the bathroom. The one night that she decided to turn off the light was a mistake. I woke up from my sleep with that feeling to use the bathroom. As my eyes opened, I noticed it was really dark. I was used to the light being on, and to see only darkness now sent a chill down my spine, but I really had to use it. I thought about holding it until there was light, but I knew I couldn't make it. I sat up and placed my feet on the cold wooden floor. When I approached the crack open door, I noticed something strange, and my eyes adjusted to the light. I swear I could make out something, a figure, standing there. I froze in my spot, eyes wide and staring. This thing stared back at me. "Mom?" No response. "Mom." I said it again. Now I was scared that maybe this thing wasn't my mom. It didn't move. It didn't flinch. "Mom." That's when there was a sound down the hallway, and then the hallway light turned on. This thing vanished from sight. My mom came racing into my bedroom, asking what was wrong. I told her I saw something standing there in the doorway, but she checked the hallway, the bathroom, and my room, and didn't find anything. She told me it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. I told her that I had to use the bathroom, but I was too afraid, so she walked me to the bathroom in the middle of the hall. I kept the door open, using the light from the hallway to guide me to the toilet. It was enough to light up most of the bathroom, so my mom saw no reason to turn on the bathroom light. Besides, she was standing by the door. I felt safe with her there. As I sat on the toilet, my eyes moving towards the mirror, I saw it, standing on the other side of the mirror. Whatever it was, I knew it lived there, and I knew it only came out to play in the dark. I had a lot of weird things happen to me in my life. Some of them explainable, but still pretty weird, and some of them not so explainable. This story is about my late grandfather in the last few years of his time with our family. When I was a young boy, I spent every summer with my grandparents. They lived deep in the country where the houses are miles apart, and the woods go on forever. I loved it. I only really saw them over summer break because they would go to Florida every year. My grandfather was half Blackfoot, and he often told me stories that his mom had passed down to him. As we would walk through the woods, it was from him that I first heard about what is often talked about as Skinwalkers. I have always had weird dreams, and I often connect them to the fact that I don't sleep very well every few months for my whole life, and I'm not exaggerating. It can happen around 4 to 6 times a year. I've been having a dream about my grandfather just standing in the tree line by where his backyard met the woods. There's 2 large bucks standing slightly behind him as he tells me to follow him, and it's that same dream that I've been having over and over again. Now, my grandfather had cancer when I was 13. Medical technology wasn't quite what it is these days, and the doctors didn't really give him a lot of good outcomes. He was 82 when he was diagnosed, and because he took great care of himself all his life, he looked like he was only 50. But that year was really hard on him, and by the end of it, he had beat it. However, within 2 years after this, he started to look skinny, skeletal, and he also had a bad smell to him. Maybe it was some of the effects of cancer and what it did to the body. Anyways, after the whole cancer thing, my grandfather began to act strange. He was always the most pleasant, peaceful man that I had ever known. He taught us lessons of grace and forgiveness. I had never heard him raise his voice, or curse, or say anything even mean. But then he began to withdraw into himself, and just speak and say random things that didn't make sense. He became the meanest person, and it wasn't something he didn't know he was doing. He was just real blunt about everything. He always spent a lot of time out in his work shed or walking through the woods, but now he spent almost all his time out there. His body fell apart on him, and we would sometimes find him out there with his walker, just staring at the treetops and humming out a key. I say this because he was a really good singer. He knew how to carry a tune, and it wasn't just him behaving strange. The animals would follow him. You know how sometimes people say that dogs and other animals can pick up when someone is gonna die, or like something is wrong with them? Well, I saw him once standing in the tree line, and he was talking to a group of wild turkeys about sacrifice. And the other weird thing is that he always stood in that same spot, over by the salt lick that my grandmother used to draw in deer, so that she could look at them while she sang in German in the kitchen and made dinner. I was maybe 30 feet away. He turned around when he heard me coming up to him, and when he did, believe it or not, he had this creepy look to him, and his face looked all wrong, like his lips and the end of his nose were way too far over his face. But then he smiled, and he walked past me, and he patted my shoulder as he went by. He disappeared into the house, looking over his shoulder at me with a smile as he did so. I looked back and the turkeys were gone. Now, this is where things begin to go wobbly. My family all says different things about when my grandfather died, and about how long it took my grandmother to tell us or bring his ashes home. Not even my grandmother is consistent, and I'll never forget the day my brothers and I found out. We came home from school. It was a Friday and I was excited to be home for the weekend. My mother had left a note on the counter that simply said, "Grandpa is dead. Massive stroke. I'll be back at 6. My mom always had trouble being sensitive to other people's feelings. My dad, on the other hand, who cried for the only time that I ever witnessed in my life, during his father's funeral, couldn't pinpoint how long it's been. He seems to think he died 5 years earlier. My brothers and my sister don't remember the note. My older brother, who wrecked the kitchen in a fit of rage after reading the note, didn't even seem to remember our grandfather last time that I spoke to him. It's almost like there's a mental block on everybody, and I can't describe it. Also, he comes to me in my dreams some nights, just like he's done my entire life, and he tells me to let go as he fades into the trees. Maybe he's been dead all this time. Dreams are pretty significant in my opinion. Never doubt that your subconscious is trying to tell you something. I know that sounds like the end, but it's not. I asked my grandmother about this when the details started to get muddy in everyone's minds. And every time that I mention my grandpa, everyone says different things. So she sat me down with a cup of coffee in her kitchen, and she was trying to tell me something. But then she forgot what we were doing. She seemed to forget that I was there for an hour and acted surprised to see me. Pretty creepy. But then she noticed my coffee and asked if I had been there for long. I told her how long I've been there and that she was about to say something about Grandpa. But then she responded saying that she doesn't remember any of that, and she even made a joke about getting old. So I took her to dinner and figured getting her out of the house would be better. When we got into my car, that's when I spotted a stag in that same spot that my grandfather always stood at. It was staring at me, even as I backed down the long driveway. Another thing that I noticed is that any photos or pictures of him kept disappearing out of our family's pictures and albums. So I stole the last 3 of him from them, and I framed them up in my living room, where I would notice them if somebody took them. Another weird thing that happened after my grandpa passed away. My dad began to clean a pond on my grandmother's land. My grandfather had always said he wanted my father to build something on it. He owned about 80 acres, and my father is a master carpenter. My dad bought a bucket crane and used it for the pond. My brothers and I would often join him on the days that he would go work. There was also a neighbor near that part of the land who had lived there about 50 years, who was always sitting out in the front with a shotgun and a pack of camels. He looked like the old man from Pet Cemetery and always made me uncomfortable. We stopped by to ask him how he was and if he had seen anything interesting going on out here. This one time he pointed out a plume of smoke by the area that we worked at. We just figured someone had done something to the crane, so we hurried back and the crane was fine. There was a small field and a clearing of trees off to the side, and it was just ash and smoldering plants. Right in the center there was something white. My older brother and I went to investigate. It was a perfectly intact bleached white skeleton of an 8-point buck. All of this is just so fucking weird. Not that I think this had anything to do with my grandpa, but I say this because it's weird what was going on around here. A bunch of weird things happened after he passed. Now, I know it seems far-fetched, but I have a theory. I think something happened to my grandfather out in the woods one day, and something ended up taking his place. I really hope I'm wrong, and if I'm not, I really hope that the skeleton in that fire was it, that my grandfather somehow took revenge from beyond. My grandmother always says that he's out there in the woods, watching over us and talking to the deer. And to reference something I said earlier about the last time that I saw my grandfather, I had already said a little bit, but I forgot. When I was 13, I was visiting my grandparents in the summertime again. I had been at their house for over 2 weeks. Earlier in the day, I had walked out to the pond with him. He was very quiet for most of the walk, even though it began to be his norm. So I'm not gonna say it was weird. I always been scared of spiders. There was a big spider web across a part of the path, and so I grabbed a stick to get rid of it. My grandfather puts a hand on my wrist, gripping it tightly, and said to me, "Don't destroy it. Everything in the world kills, but only to survive. And so all of us are just surviving here." He walked off the path, went around it, and started humming an old song. I remember the smell, the rotting meat, suddenly happening. And my grandfather stumbled a bit. I asked if he was alright, and he just said it was time for me to go home, and started heading back to the house. I followed. He walked past the front house when I went in, and went over to the tree line. I told my grandmother that I wanted to go home, and as we got in the car, he stood over by the salt lick, with 2 bucks behind him. I thought he was waving, and so I just waved back. He held his hand out like he wanted me to stop leaving, and he gestured for me to come. I shook my head as we headed around the bend, and the last time that I ever saw him, he turned around and went into the woods, the 2 bucks moving out of his way. My grandfather was a delivery person back in the 1930s. He joined the Air Force to fight in World War II. After America got involved, despite being half German and half Blackfoot himself, he ended up marrying my grandmother not long after the war ended. He was very tall, had dark skin, and had gray hair pretty much his entire life. He also loved nature and animals, and he was a spiritualist himself, believing in the power of nature rather than any god. But he never really talked about his beliefs unless you really pressed him. He never yelled or anything at all until those last few years of his life. He did like to drink a little bit and smoke some Camels, which if you caught the guy that I mentioned before, might have just been the local thing to do. I'm not sure. All of his neighbors that I ever met did the same. He quit smoking in the 90s, but then he picked it back up about 10 years later. Just a couple here and there. My grandmother herself was actually from Germany and lived in Berlin during the war. Only her and one of her 4 brothers survived the war out of the whole family. He always said that the animals had a specific smell to the way they did things, and for people to say that He liked to work with his hands and was himself a master carpenter, and often spoke about the value of hard work. He also spoke about some sort of thing that could walk inside a man. I don't know what kind of words he used for it, because apparently Skinwalker isn't the right word. Wendigo, or Wendigo, is a little bit more familiar, and it could be the right one. He said that he spoke to the animals that lived in the woods, and that they told him to be careful of the deer. My grandfather was very trusting and spiritual man, so he asked the deer themselves whenever he got the chance, which is why he had the salt lick right out in the open by his house. I'm guessing he wanted to see from the kitchen. I wonder if he told me about the deer on purpose. Do y'all know any stories, or possibly have an explanation as to what happened here? In summary, a bunch of weird things just around my grandfather's death. Maybe I'll never have the answer. What do you all think? Maybe it was a skinwalker, a witch, or an evil spirit. Let me know what you think. I'm from the reservation, and most of you know that we like spending our money at the casino. When I first started working for a casino a few years ago, some people told me about the evil spirits around, and they say that when you leave after clocking out, you should always turn around and tell the spirits to stay, and that they're not allowed to follow you. My first Halloween there, I saw a lot of people dressed up, and you don't think anything of it. It's Halloween, and I'm also running from one building to the other for assistance or calls because I'm a supervisor. So at this casino, you go from one building to the other through this long hallway. One night, as the night is going full blast fun for everyone, I come around the corner, and I almost fucking pass out. Walking around is this scary, demon, devil-looking person, wearing all black, but with a brown torn outfit. He also had some big-ass horns, dark hair from his waist down, and he was also very tall. Working that day, I had seen so many costumes, but this one just looked so real. He also didn't have feet. He had hoofs and was walking on them upright. When I walked by him, he didn't turn to look at me or anything, but it definitely creeped me out. When I got to the end of the hallway, I turned around to see him, and he was just standing there, looking my way. It's creepy as hell, an image that I won't ever forget. I'm not saying this was an evil spirit or a skinwalker, but mind you, if you aren't familiar or if you've forgotten, evil spirits hang around where temptation is. I also heard this once before about a casino. Some people said that they saw somebody giving money out to people, and everybody who accepted it ended up dying. After all, it's a casino. Lots of beer, lots of alcohol, card games and entertainment, slot machines, and a bunch of other things. I've been reading the stories about skinwalkers and that horrible smell, like rotting flesh. It makes me think, could it have been a skinwalker? I want to tell you a story. I'm not even sure what to do. Maybe you can help me. It started one day when I was driving home late at night. I had left my friend's party in Gallup, and I drove my truck all the way back to Chinley. I drive my truck everywhere, so I'm really familiar with it. I hadn't driven over any roadkill or hit anything, not even to think that something had died underneath the hood. I keep my windows up and the doors locked by habit. The next day, I went out to my truck and opened the door, and the most putrid smell hit me so hard that I almost threw up. It was really overpowering. It made me sick right there on the spot. I never smelled anything like that in my life. I went back later, and I opened all the windows and let them stay open for 3 days, and yet the smell wouldn't go away. I ended up buying 4 bottles of Febreze, and I sprayed the inside and underside of the truck until the bottles were empty. I ended up closing the windows again. The next day, the smell was worse than ever, so I just left the truck there and I stayed home. 2 full days after I had sprayed the truck, I opened the door and there was no smell. You couldn't even smell any Febreze. It was like the smell had never happened. I've been having the truck for 2 years now. I started thinking that maybe it was some kind of chemical leak in the hose or something, but everything was fine. Even the truck drives fine. I don't know any medicine man around me, so I contacted my dad a few days ago, and he just told me to sage my truck, sage the inside of my home, outside my home, then all around the property as much as I could, and then to also smudge myself. It started raining when I first started, and then it had quit by the time that I was done. And that's about it so far. Nothing else happened. But I guess you just never know. Maybe it was just a dead mouse or something inside my truck. What do you all think? I did forget one thing, now that I'm putting everything together. I did have a bad dream a few days ago, but I think it's from the anxiety of trying to figure out what's been going on. To start off, this happened a little over 10 years ago. Everything I'm going to tell you was written down back then, while it was still fresh in my mind. I came across the notes again, and it made me remember the entire night all over again. At the time when this happened, I was 27 years old. I was pretty much raised as a woodsman and a hunter. My grandfather took me out into the woods every chance that he had. Hunting, fishing, tracking, trapping, just about everything living off the land skills. My dad, on the other hand, he was involved in emergency services. So I grew up around incident command, medical first responders, all that boring stuff. Naturally, I ended up becoming a dedicated volunteer with the local ground search and rescue unit when I turned 18. After only a year, I was made a team captain. Between that and my former job, I seen murder, suicide, accident victims, bodies in all states of rot and decay. But as the years go by, you get a thick skin. So I thought I could handle anything. But I was wrong. The names have been changed, and the area won't be mentioned for, I'll just say that we were in the northeast of North America. Around 1 a.m. on a Thursday morning, we got a call for a missing native hunter. He didn't return home after heading out to drop a few bags of apples at his deer blind. Calls like this happen often. Most of the time, the hunter gets a deer and stays the night to pack it out in the morning. Sometimes somebody falls. One guy had a heart attack dragging heavy apples, but most of the time everything turns out to be alright. We meet at the local mall, hop in our transport bus, and head the 3 hours out. We arrive around 6 a.m. The missing man is about 40 years old. He carries a rifle. He's hunted this area his whole life. It is pretty strange. All the native hunters are good in the woods, and 40 is pretty young for some sort of heart attack, but it happens. My team of 5 heads out from where his truck is parked on a no logging road. There's me, Jan, C, Steven, and Kyle. We all have wilderness backgrounds and were selected because we've proven ourselves. Each of us carries basic survival gear, advanced medkits, electronic and old school navigation tools. The hunter's family gave us coordinates for the blind, so that's where we go. It's roughly noon now. According to the GPS, we're getting close. We are in a line search formation, about 10 feet apart. A loud scream suddenly echoes through the trees. It sounded like a woman getting stabbed in a slasher film. The 2 teammates on either side of me immediately break formation, and they rush towards me. I grab my radio to call it in, but I get nothing, just harsh feedback. A brand new 1400 real-time tracking radio, and they're still completely useless. I tell the others to move. We start heading towards the screen and towards the deer blind. About 10 minutes later, I finally see some camouflage netting draped between the trees. We have found the blind, and as we get close, the very first thing that I see are two large male foxes. The moment that I hear their screeching, I recognize the sound, and it's not the most comforting. The foxes bolt the moment that they notice us. I raise my hand and tell my team to hold back while I move in and check the blind. Seeing that the hunter's pack lying here is already a bad sign. It means that the owner is nearby, and not in a good way. The first thing I notice besides the shredded pack are two full burlap sacks lying on the ground. Then I take in the state of the blind itself. It looks absolutely wrecked, torn up, leaves kicked everywhere, boot prints circling the area, and about 16 empty casings all around the ground, as if someone ran in panic circles, firing wild in every direction. The hunter is not in the blind. None of it makes any sense. I try my radio again. Still nothing but static. I check my phone. No signal at all. I slowly back out the same way that I came in order to preserve the scene in case this turns into a police investigation. Once I get to the others, I jot down every detail in my notepad. Then I pull out my compass. The others do the same. Something is wrong, and we need to move. It's around 2 p.m. now, and we're making good time when Jen suddenly tells us to stop so that she can recheck our bearings. I check mine. I'm still on the same course, but everyone else is telling me that I'm wrong. We then compare readings, and somehow, every single GPS unit is giving completely different information. Just fucking perfect. Exactly what we need. I take out the map again. Triangulation is nearly impossible because the forest is so tall, and according to the lines, the terrain should be sloping downhill back towards the road, but we're obviously heading uphill. This never happens to us. Ever. I try to keep myself calm, and then tell everybody to stop. We take a break, eat some rations, hydrate, and settle down for a moment. Once we gather ourselves, we form a game plan. Everyone studies the map and compass again. A minute later, everyone somehow still has a different idea where we should be heading. GPS, still useless. Radios, still dead. We then check everything again. Kyle says that we need to go north and points one way. Jen immediately agrees with him, except north on my compass is somewhere entirely different. I look down at mine, then at theirs, and I realize all 5 of them are pointing in 5 different directions. These things only behave like that when there's a massive metal source or some magnetic field nearby. Something is seriously wrong. We're lost. Search and rescue. Lost. It's embarrassing, but better than pretending otherwise. And the rule number 1 whenever you're lost, stay where you are. I fire 3 red pen flares straight into the air. Then we blow our Fox 40 whistles over and over again until our ears ring. Hours go by. 10 more flares. Endless whistle blasting. By now the sun is going down. The clouds are rolling in. The temperature is dropping and the rain is starting. Search mode is now off, and survival mode is now on. We build a fire and get it going. The rain picks up. It's starting to get cold, and we're soaked. We drink from our canteen cups. We talk a bit, and we try not to get discouraged. Eventually, we decide on a fire watch rotation through the night. I take first watch. It's always the best shift because you get to sleep longer afterward. I'm barely covered, getting wet and colder by the minute, so I decide to get up and collect more firewood. At this point, the rain is slowing down anyway, and we need more fuel. This is where everything begins to unravel. I'm about 15 or 20 feet away, snapping off dead branches, when I hear something loud, followed by screaming. I run back towards the shelters. Both of them are collapsed, completely destroyed, and my 4 teammates are crawling out from underneath the broken framework. What the hell happened? We're trained to build them pretty strong. They don't just fall over. At this point, Jen is crying, shaking. Someone was here. Kyle demands to know where I was. I tell him that I was gathering firewood. We're able to calm Jen down enough for her to talk. She says that she woke up suddenly with a sick feeling in her stomach. She then heard footsteps and assumed it was me walking around, until she heard a loud crack. She then rolled over, and in the firelight, saw the silhouette of an extremely large person pushing down on the main cross posts of both shelters. Then everything caved in on top of them. That's when I feel my anger spike instantly. Most likely some inbred rednecks screwing around out here. We packed quickly. I did search the area, but I didn't find any footprints, no crushed ferns, no sort of disturbance. Whoever, or whatever it was, seemed to have moved around here with nobody noticing. Steven, on the other hand, wants us to stay put. Our navigation is still useless. Our radios are still dead, but I'm done waiting. I assigned everyone a number. When I yell the number 1, each person shouts their number in order. We'll spread out slightly, just enough to form a line. That way we don't miss an old ATV trail or any sort of path. We turn on the headlamps, grip our mag lights, and we start marching. After 100 paces, I call out. 1, 2, echoes from my left. 3, a little further. 4, from Jen's side. 5, from Steven. Then, from somewhere to my right. 4, like a dying moose, trying to speak through a slit throat. 4. I then shine my light towards the sound. 4, and that's when I see it. A figure, a person, if you can even call it that, standing by the trees, at least 7 fucking feet tall. A camo hunting jacket stretching across its body, its arms low, hands nearly reaching its knees, one leg longer than the other. I shine my light up to its face, and my stomach lurches. One side looks normal, but the other side looks melted. The right eye sits 3 inches lower than the left. The bottom lid falls below the chin. I fucking scream. Full panic, high pitch, like a terrified kid, and I fall backwards onto the ground. This thing, its lip, it curls up into an impossible smile that stretches all the way towards its ear. That's when my team rushes to me. This thing, creature, whatever it is, it drops onto all fours and runs into the forest with terrifying speed, like a fucking cheetah cutting through brush. Nobody else saw it, but they all heard it, copying number 4. Jen turns ghost white, tears streaming down her face. I just want to go home. I reload my pen flare. I try the radio again, but nothing. That's it, we're leaving. Arms reach distance, no more line search. We then hike as fast as our legs can move. Feels like miles. Branches snapping everywhere. At some point we even hear footsteps racing alongside us, behind us, ahead of us. Something is running circles around our group. And the worst part, we kept hearing it. It kept calling out that 4, and every time it repeats it, it was starting to sound a little more human, a little more like one of us. By dawn, the sounds finally fade, and the voice stopped. Suddenly, Steven whispers, "Did you hear that?" We stop. A whistle. I then blow mine. Another whistle answers. We run to it, blowing our whistles non-stop. Finally, we stumble into another search team. The leader, Dave, immediately starts asking us questions. Are we okay? What happened? Did we lose contact? Why wasn't our tracking radio pinging? Then suddenly, as if nothing ever happened, both of our radios crackled back to life. Team 4, we just picked up Team 1's signal. They're right on top of you. Are they with you? The GPS is working again. The compass is working again. Everything is fucking suddenly normal now. Dave then says that they found the hunter. Where? I ask. At his deer blind. No fucking way. He wasn't there. I then describe the blind, the scattered leaves, the empty casings, the shredded pack. My team backs me up, but they're shaken. But Dave is just insisting that the Team 3 took photos. In their pictures, the leaves are untouched. The blind is perfectly intact. There's no casings. Apples are neatly placed in one pile. Everything looks completely normal. Back at command, I give my report. I leave out the creature, but I describe the blind exactly as I saw it. They show me Team 3's photos. None of it matches. Later, I walk to the ambulance. I wanted to get to the hunter and ask him some questions. I turn the corner, and there he is. This thing that I saw in the woods. I swear, it's him. Only now he looks fully human. But the face, the jacket, and that feeling that I got, I know it's him. He opens his eyes, looks right at me, and smiles. My whole body rejects it, just pure instinct. I turn around, I grab my gear, and I get on the bus. My team then sits in silence the whole drive home. A few days later, my search manager tells me that the hunter is physically fine, but he's starting to act strange. Shock, trauma, exposure. They claim they don't know, but I do. And I can't shake the feeling that we bring something out of the wilderness that doesn't belong with us, because whatever I saw, whatever walked out of those woods with Team 3, that was not the fucking hunter. Ever since that night, sleep has never felt the same. Like I said in the beginning, I grew up in the woods, but now the thought of going back makes my stomach twist. I eventually went on smaller searches, and everything seemed normal. But this is the one thing that I try to forget. I'm Potawatomi. Don't laugh, but I don't know anything about that. My dad is too, but his family has been full Christian for what feels like forever. So we have a connection with who we are, but we don't really do any of the tribal religions and stuff. I do live in the northeast part of the state inside of Topeka, and I have this coworker that lives on the Potawatomi REZ, and he believes in the tribal religions and legends and everything else. This is a story of something that happened the other year. I don't really understand any of the things that happened, but here it goes. It was late November. We just had a huge blizzard slam through Kansas. In some areas there were about 7+ inches of snow. Because of the storm that was coming, the warehouse workers, which included me and my coworker, we all got off early. My coworker called me up and asked me if I wanted to go deer hunting. I said sure, whatever, but who even hunts deer in a snowstorm? He has no windows in a half-finished house, and he uses sheets to keep the air from coming in. He sleeps on the floor on the mattress. He has like 100 guns which lay everywhere. He also has a huge wood-burning stove from the late 1800s that he uses for everything. It might sound a little bit rough, but he built the place himself, and he's quite happy about it. Very proud of what he's done. At that point it was just lightly snowing, so I figured I would go with him. I let my dad know, and he told me just to be ready in case the storm gets bad. I grabbed my Remington, and I drove 30 minutes north. I packed some soft tip rounds and finally got up there. and went out to the forest with my coworker to go get some deer. Not even 10 minutes into our hunt, we were going through a line of pine trees along a fence line when we spotted a dead buck. He must have been dead for about 30 minutes or so. The blood was still kind of fresh and everything. At this point, the storm was getting worse, but my coworker decided that he was just going to take it apart right there, and I thought I didn't even need to use my gun. But as we got close to it, we noticed that the buck had been absolutely ripped apart. The only thing on the carcass was the rear legs. Right away, I had a bad feeling about this. I loaded my gun. There's no way a coyote can do that level of damage. Maybe a mountain lion. There's been sightings in the area, but not to the point that it makes somebody worry. It was weird. It looked like somebody had force-fed a deer a stick of dynamite and then blew it up. Its rib cage had been pried open as if something had forced it apart and split it open. There was meat here and there, and fur everywhere. Half of its torso had been just torn apart. There was a small blood trail leading off. My friend's demeanor changed right away. He had me squat down with him. The more that we examined the damage, the more creeped out he got. He even started whispering, "He did this. We need to get out of the area right fucking now." I was like, "Are you serious, dude? It could have been just a mountain lion." And then he said, "No, they wouldn't do this. It tore this buck apart out of rage. It's a warning, and it's gonna come back to trash the carcass even more." We were able to get 2 legs, and then we just went back instead. And when I say we went back, he seriously sprinted all the way back, to the point where I had to keep up with him. He was hauling ass and he was obviously terrified. We got back to his cabin, and right away he started talking to his mom on the phone in his own native language. Now I don't know the language at all, so I did record it to have my dad try and decipher what they were talking about. After about 30 minutes or so, his mom actually came, and she was basically flipping her shit. She even told me to grab my stuff and just go home. However, before she let me go, she told me to be safe. At this point I'm curious, so I asked, "What's going on? I don't understand anything, but you are scaring me. Can you just explain to me what's going on?" But she didn't. She basically dragged me out in the middle of the raging blizzard and had me get in my truck. She even gave me a Coca-Cola to sip on the way back home. I had to drive slowly, and it took forever to get back home. I showed my dad the video of the conversation that my friend had on the phone. When he listened, he stood up. He walked into the other room, grabbed a hammer, and I kid you not, he smashed my phone. It made me jump when he did this. I was like, "What the hell, Dad?" And he simply said, "This never happened. Don't ever talk about this again." Clearly he was freaked out just like my friend was. And I never did confront my dad again about what was said. I have gone to work and I asked my friend about it. He basically brushes me off. He tells me not to worry, that everything's been taken care of. But he says that we should go squirrel hunting soon, but in a different area. I almost forgot to mention, he did let me have the legs. They ended up at my sister's place in her deep freezer. But at this point, I don't know if I should touch them or anything. The following story will be told from the perspective of a wife. About a year ago, my husband and I decided to spend Thanksgiving at a cabin up north. We found it online through a site that we have used in the past, and we booked it for a week. The owner warned us that it can be hard to get back to in the winter because of the snow. The cabin was outside of Pine Top, Arizona, way outside. It was 35 miles from the nearest town and 18 miles from the nearest paved road. Aaron and I were not worried, since our Jeep had snow tires, and we were also bringing some chains just in case. We were planning on starting a family the following year, and we wanted one last romantic getaway with just the two of us. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. We had made excellent time on the drive as there was actually very little snow on the ground. We decided to take a tour of the cabin before we unloaded the car. The cabin, it was named Paradise Pine. It was 3 stories tall, and it was built into the side of a mountain. The top floor was simply the master bedroom, which was connected to a 2nd-story patio balcony through a sliding glass door. The front door was located on the ground floor, along with the kitchen and living room, and the basement housed a washer, a dryer, and a wood furnace that heated the cabin through a large pipe that extended throughout the cabin, all 3 floors. Even though the views through the bay windows were beautiful, the first thing we noticed when we walked in was that the cabin hadn't been cleaned. Oftentimes with these properties, the owner will offer to waive the $150 cleaning fee if you are willing to clean the place yourself before you leave. Most people do this, but when they don't, the owner ends up sending a cleaning crew. The previous people in this cabin had clearly decided not to clean, and I guess also not to inform the owner that they were leaving it dirty. Since it was a holiday, and a snowstorm was forecasted for early next week, we decided to clean the cabin ourselves, and we were planning on asking the owner to reduce our bill whenever we left the following Friday. We brought everything in from the Jeep and got to work with dishes and laundry. Afterwards, we made an easy dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and we played a few games on the pool table in the living room. The weather outside started to go down at 6 in the evening, and I asked my husband Aaron to go down and light the furnace in the basement. I went up to the bedroom to wash my face and change into some warmer clothes. The bathroom connecting to our bedroom didn't have a door. It also had a broken mirror and a torn down shower curtain. Wow, there's been some cowboys in here. They hadn't even bothered to pick up the glass up off the floor. I did so carefully, regretting the stupidity of the drunken idiots who must have stayed here the week before. I took a few photos with my phone, and I planned to send them to the owner when we got back to town on Monday. I didn't want to be charged for damage inflicted by the previous people. I met Aaron on the ground level, and I told him about the bathroom. That's not the only thing that's broken. The light's out in the basement, and I couldn't find a flashlight. I was able to find the furnace though. I squirted some of that cheap vodka your sister sent in there. I threw in a match and hoped for the best. Seems to be working, I said. I can feel the heat coming through. I held my hands up to the metal pipe that worked its way around the cabin. Let's keep the basement door shut. It's freezing down here. One of our favorite things to do when staying at a cabin is to read through all the journal entries of all the previous guests. It's always stuff like, went fishing with the kids, had a barbecue, played cards with the family, but sometimes you'll find something more interesting, like, I got drunk and set a tree on fire. We found the Paradise Pine diary and snuggled up on the couch. Erin started reading the first few entries before I decided to take over. We were about halfway through the book when we called it a night and went to bed. The following evening we stayed up late as we had a long nap that day. The plan had been to go on a hike, but it was too cold outside. Lucky for us, the furnace in the basement was still burning. We spent the whole day around the living room. After dinner, Erin got on the pool table as I started reading from the journal, starting where we had left off. I read for about an hour before getting to the journal entry of the people who had stayed before us. I was very interested in this one. These people must have had a good story. The writer even wrote down his entries with dates and time, and I could already tell the handwriting sort of disintegrated as the days went on. They must have been drunk all weekend. Look how messy the handwriting gets. I held the book up to Aaron. Can you read it? He asked, putting the 8-ball into a pocket. Well, of course. I'm great at reading other people's shitty handwriting by now. I smirked and took another sip of wine before beginning to read. Sunday, November 4th, 3:30 p.m. What a beautiful cabin. My wife and I booked this place for 2 weeks on a whim, and we can't believe how lucky we got. Barely made it back here with the truck. There's snow everywhere, at least a foot deep, and it's below 40 degrees outside. Thankfully, the furnace in the basement is huge, as promised by Marissa, so the whole cabin is warm and cozy. Monday, November 5th, 11:30 a.m. We're snowed in. We wanted to run home today to grab a few things we forgot, but that's definitely not happening. The road is not good, so I guess we're going nowhere. Looks like we will be spending most of the day inside drinking and playing poker. As you can see, we're not too upset about it. Tuesday, November 6th, 7:25 p.m. My wife Sarah is currently cooking up a delicious roast chicken, and I'm finally gonna start writing. This is the reason we came here, and I refuse to waste the opportunity to cure my writer's block. It's beautiful here, and I still haven't written down a damn thing. I also saw someone walking around the tree line today. I have no idea how they're surviving out there. We're not even going outside. It was 34 degrees the last I checked. Wednesday, November 7th, 9 p.m. Sarah and I made a snowman and snow angels, so we're taking full advantage of it. I haven't been able to write anything new, but I did edit the previous 2 chapters of my book. I think the beauty of this place is just too distracting. Sort of. I'm kidding. I think we may have neighbors. I was having a cigarette out on the balcony last night, and I saw someone at the tree line again, extremely tall, and close enough to say hello, but whenever I waved, he walked back into the woods. I'm gonna ask Marissa about this. She didn't mention any neighbors nearby. Thursday, November 8th, 1 p.m. This morning, I woke up to find animal tracks all around the outside of the cabin. I don't know what sort of animal made them. The prints were the shape of a rectangle, almost like they were made by the end of a 2x4. By this time, Sarah got up at 11. The snow had mostly melted, but you could still kind of see them. I think last night's snow is the last that we'll get in a while. The sky is looking pretty clear. Sarah thinks I'm starting to get cabin fever, so I guess today we're gonna go for a hike since it's beautiful outside. Friday, November 9th, 7 a.m. Last night, someone tried getting into the cabin. I woke up at about 1 in the morning to the sound of banging on the front door. Not knocking, fucking banging. I went downstairs and grabbed a pool stick. I asked who it was, and the sound stopped. I waited a few minutes and then opened the door. There was nothing there. I went back up the stairs to wake up Sarah. She is a heavy sleeper. That's when the banging sounded again. It was urgent this time, and it was coming from the other side of the room, on the wall next to the bookshelf. It stopped after a long minute, and I sat down on the steps and waited all night for them to try something. Nothing happened after that. Friday, November 9th, 2 p.m. I told Sarah what happened, and she wants to leave. I'm not really convinced though, but Sarah does get scared easily. I will admit that I'm a bit on edge. I tried to start the car this morning, but nothing happened. I'm not a car guy, and I have no idea what to do. We can't hike outside. There's no signal out here, and we can't find a house phone. We talked about it and decided that we're just gonna wait it out here. I know people have this cabin rented out on the 16th, so we'll just have to wait the week for them. I did find a wood axe, which I'm keeping in the bedroom, just in case they come back to harass us. I think it might be a homeless person living out in the woods. There were tracks around the house again this morning, and I'm no longer convinced that they're from an animal. We'll see if they come back. Saturday, 5 a.m. Last night the knocking was back. but it was something knocking on the sliding door to our bedroom from the second-story patio. I don't know how it climbed up there and knocked on the window. A thin curtain covers the sliding glass door, so I couldn't see what it was. The knocking finally stopped, and a full minute later it started again, becoming this loud, insistent banging of the night before, and I grabbed a handy axe. I got out of bed as she screamed. By the time that I got to the sliding door, the sound had stopped. I threw back the curtain, but there was nobody there. However, in the moonlight, I saw it walking away from the cabin, back to the tree line. Sarah then stumbled over to the window, and I showed her what I was looking at. She covered her face and started crying. What we saw terrified us both. It's not human. I know it's not. It's tall, maybe 10 feet, and skinny. It looks like a black stick figure, and possibly thin. It has no hands or feet, and it has no face. Just a black oval, with no features. The contrast was horrifying. This tall, black stick man walking through the snow. When it got to the trees, it disappeared. I spent the next hour trying to calm Sarah down. She said we need to leave, and I think she's right. When we were finally calmed down enough, we laid down in bed again. Felt myself slowly start to drift off. It was out of the silence that the knocking came again. This time, on our bedroom door. I jumped out of bed and grabbed the axe again. Sarah backed into a corner and screamed. By the time that I threw open the door, the knocking had stopped. There was nothing there, but the front door was wide open. Saturday, 5 p.m. I'm terrified. My wife is terrified. Today I consider setting the car on fire, just to see if the smoke would attract somebody's attention. Sarah wouldn't let me because it's our only way out, so we packed the car up instead. Maybe when the snow melts more, we'll be able to fix the car. I then spot Sarah staring off a lot, and she hasn't really said anything ever since she saw it. Seeing this thing, it's affected me too. I've been having migraines today, and I never had a migraine before. I want to protect my wife, but I'm not sure what to do. I even caught Sarah staring at me, almost in a trance earlier. I did ask her what was wrong, and she just said, "It eats us." She seemed to snap out of it pretty quickly after that, and she asked me why I was staring at her. She doesn't remember saying it, and I guess we can't figure out what it means. This thing is starting to fuck with our heads, I know that. Sunday, 10 a.m. Last night I stayed up all night. It's lightly snowing. All was quiet. Sunday, 7 p.m. I found some footprints this afternoon on the upstairs balcony. Same rectangle once the stickman makes. It was outside our window again. I brushed them off way before Sarah could see them. It stopped snowing an hour ago, and it's twilight now. I can see him out in the trees. I saw him turn around and walk back into the woods. He is thin as a piece of paper. I think something's gonna happen. I think we're gonna end up dying here. Monday, November 12th, 9 a.m. Last night I went out on the balcony at around 8 for a cigarette. I heard a noise behind me, and I turned to see this fucking stick man on the roof, 5 feet above me. I ran back inside to grab the axe, and I screamed at Sarah to get ready. I turned around to run back outside, and I heard the stick man running above me on the roof. When I got outside, this thing was gone. That's when I saw it running off into the trees again. But it was different. It was taller. I think there's more than one. When I got back inside, Sarah had locked herself in the upstairs bathroom. She was hysterical and kept saying that she was gonna die here. I tried to give her the pool stick, but she wouldn't open the door. I sat on the bed and waited. At some point, Sarah must have fallen asleep because all was quiet. It was then that I heard it walking around in the kitchen. I backed away from the bedroom door. All my courage was gone. It was inside. I waited for more sounds from the kitchen, but nothing came. After a few minutes, I finally heard something. It was climbing the stairs, slowly but loud. I banged the bedroom door from my side and told it to leave us alone. Sarah started screaming again, sobbing. It could hurt me, but I wasn't gonna let it hurt my family. It then stopped when it got to the top step. I could feel it on the other side of the door. It didn't make a noise. I tried to think of a strategy that would give me the upper hand if it attacked. I finally decided that if I threw the door open, it would knock the stick man down the stairs. On the count of 3, I turned the handle and kicked the door. It swinged open, and I saw the stick man. He was still down on the first step of the stairs, facing me. It was more than 10 fucking feet tall. I was paralyzed for a few seconds. That's until it started running up the stairs at me. I stumbled back into the room as fast as I could. I realized that dying at the hands of the stick man was more than just death. It stopped at the top and dipped its head through the door, taking 2 steps into the room. It was just a tall black shadow, almost more of a dense absence of light than a solid black. Realizing the axe was still in my hand, I moved between the stick man and the bathroom door. I raised the axe to attack, and at that moment, the stick man started screaming. It was unlike anything I ever heard before. I wanted to hold my hands over my ears as I felt a thunder in my brain. That's when I heard the mirror break in the bathroom from the sound. I thought about Sarah with the last ounce of strength that I had. I ran at this thing, axe high, and I brought it down into the creature's chest, over and over again. It threw me aside, and that's when I heard my wife scream. That's the last thing I remember before I passed out. When I opened my eyes again, it was mid-morning. My wife was gone. The bathroom door was gone. And my axe was gone. I looked for Sarah all morning. I walked deep into the woods. I looked around for miles. I'm gonna go sleep for a few minutes and then go back out there. I need to find her. I hope I meet that fucking stick man. Because if Sarah's dead, then I want to be dead too. I think that's what it wanted all this time. Monday, November 12th, 6 p.m. It's getting dark and harder to search the woods. In my mind, all I hear is her voice. It eats us, over and over again. What did it do to her? I couldn't save her. After everything, I couldn't fucking save her. When I first realized that I had forgotten my medication, the storm stopped us from leaving. But when I saw the stick man, I thought it was a blessing in disguise. I needed to be clear-minded and alert to protect my family, and I couldn't do that when I was on the haloperidol. But it still didn't matter in the end. I couldn't save her. The car started on the first try this morning. It's letting me leave. I'm gonna go drive around to the other side of the mountain and then walk back towards the cabin. Maybe I'll find Sarah. It would be useless to stay another day. The stick man is gone. I know it. It's below freezing outside, and the furnace has burned out. The firewood is gone. If I find her, I'll come back and write in this book. Who's my only friend now. Erin had stopped playing pool long ago, and the wine hadn't been touched since I started reading. We stared at each other as the last line echoed around the cabin. We both seemed to wake up from our paralyzed state at the same time. That's when I threw the book across the room. "This is fake, right?" I stood up and asked. I didn't need the glass of wine anymore. At this point, I needed the whole fucking bottle. I don't think so. The guy did say he was a writer. I insisted. Maybe he just wanted to write a scary story for the people, even though he really crossed the line into disturbing. I took a sip of wine and turned around to see Aaron looking at the stairs. Aaron, you can't be fucking serious. It's creepy as shit. I agree, but let's be real now. Almost like he didn't hear me, Aaron started going up the stairs. I'm not sure what he wanted to see up there, but I put the wine down and followed. By the time that I got into the bedroom, Aaron was sliding the glass door open. I followed him onto the balcony. You could see the tree line from the patio very clearly. I searched the woods for any movement, but I didn't see anything. I turned to say something to Aaron and found him studying the roof. He threw a wild look at me and walked back inside. I followed him. Aaron started pacing around the room. What is it? I was starting to get annoyed. It's all just like in the story. You can see the tree line, the field and the roof from the balcony. And look at this. He pointed to the bathroom. There's hinges but no door. There should be a door. It's a bathroom. And the mirror. What about the mirror? I said. It was shattered by the screaming of the stick man. The stick man? Did you even pay attention to what you read? There was no stick man. There never was. This last entry about the medication and how they got snowed in and couldn't go back for it. Haloperidol. It's used to treat schizo. Go read it again. The entire thing is him slowly falling to his psychosis, page by page. Hell, his wife knew it was happening. I walked into the bathroom and looked around. I think someone died in here about 4 days ago. Aaron shook his head. I don't know. I think it's possible. The shower curtain is torn down. The mirror is broken. It looks like there could have been a struggle in here. And the door, the axe, they're both missing. The logic of his conclusions began to dawn on me. My God, if this is real, Aaron, we ended up cleaning this place top to bottom when we got here. If there was a murder, we destroyed all the evidence. We didn't know that somebody died here. And we still don't know. Where's the body? Maybe it's buried out in the woods. We need to go get help. Let's take the book to the police and tell them what we found when we got here, just to be safe. Jesus, this guy could come back any time. Let's go. We had just started down the stairs when another thought crossed my mind. I stopped on the landing. Aaron. He turned around. He said the fire in the furnace had burned out. Did you put firewood in when you lit it? No. It was almost pitch black. I couldn't see any firewood. We've been burning that furnace for almost a day. I could see the implication slowly dawning over Aaron's face. So, what is it that we've been burning? He ran for the basement door and I followed. When he opened the door, can't even describe to you what came up from below. It was a hot, pungent, heavy air. I stood on the top step as Aaron descended into the basement. The axe is down here. I took a deep breath and followed him down. I stopped on the bottom stair, refusing to go any further. It was still very dark, before the light coming down the stairs and a soft orange glow in the back of the room. Aaron knelt in front of the stove door. He looked over at me, and I nodded. Aaron slowly turned the handle and pulled open the furnace door. The fire inside, it lit his face, and after a moment, the horror that he showed told me everything that I needed to know. They had found Jason less than a month later. He had hung himself out in the woods, 50 yards from the cabin. In fact, he had been hanging there when we pulled up on Sunday, the 18th of November. I often wonder if he hung himself because he wanted to be with his wife, or if he hung himself because he realized what he had done. I hope it was the latter because I hated him so much. Not for his mental illness, not for his crime, but for what he did to us. Sarah had burned in that furnace for a day, and for a day, we inhaled every atom of her body. We were kept warm by the flesh of her body. Why didn't it smell? We were given a very scientific explanation citing high burning temperatures, years of pine infusion, and the pieces of wooden door burning in there with her. But it didn't stop the nightmares. The case did make headline news, at least locally. Erin and I were able to prevent our names from being associated with Paradise Pine. We never told our friends or families we were involved. We try to forget everything. Paradise Pine still stands today. It's available for rent, even though the name has been changed. The owner insisted on keeping the cabin journal, so the police tore out Jason's pages and gave it back to her. It still sits on the table next to the bookshelf, and people still read it and write their own experiences. Sometimes, I wonder if people see those torn pages and wonder what was written on them and what happened to them. I guess they'll never know that the cabin that they're standing in is actually the Paradise Pine. Have you ever seen a figure in your bedroom? A shadow or something? Maybe when you're sleeping and something wakes you up in the middle of the night. You might be laying down right now. Go ahead and look around your room and tell me you don't see a shadow. If you still want to claim you haven't, maybe you should ask your sibling about something they saw growing up, or anybody who slept in the same room as you when you were younger. Growing up, we stayed in this old home. They said it was built sometime in the late 1800s, a dirt basement. I had 4 siblings, and my 2 sisters and I shared the bedroom upstairs. It never had a door, just a doorway, so we could see directly into our brother's room. Our 2 brothers' bedroom was just a big room across from ours that had the stairs leading down to the first floor, and the attic up on the wall across from them. I believe I was 5 or 6 when I had this nightmare. I felt like it was actually real. I remember waking up in the middle of the night. When I did, I thought I saw my sister standing in the vanity dresser. She was wearing a witch hat and digging around in her makeup and things. It was dark, so I could really only see the body and the hat, and I could see her arms moving around and the noise of makeup being tossed around. I was like, Amber. Then I looked in Amber's bed, which was right next to the dresser, and I saw that she was definitely there sleeping. That's when I fucking panicked, because the woman stopped moving, and she got really quiet. That's when she jumped and spun completely around, and she looked directly at me. She put her index finger to her mouth and went, shh. That's when she ran towards me. It was an old woman, an evil smirk on her face. I whipped my blanket over my head and just lay there terrified about what was going to happen next. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I went back to sleep. But I remember waking up, and I told my mom in the morning. She said that I must have had a bad nightmare and to not be scared. Anyways, when I was about 17 or 18, I remember telling my brother Adam about the dream that I had. He is about 3 to 4 years older than me, so he remembers a lot more from that old house than I do. When I told him, he was like, I used to see that witch a lot, always digging in Amber's stuff. He used to sleep on the top bunk of the bed in his room, and it was facing our bedroom doorway. Pretty fucking scary that we all saw her growing up, but nobody ever said anything. Well, I did, but my parents never believed me. I'm just glad that it was consistent. So maybe ask your siblings or somebody who stayed in the room with you growing up if they ever saw something standing in the corner of your bedroom at night. Have you heard about never walking past mirrors at night, not whispering at night, close the windows, all of that, and don't leave any doors open when you go to bed? This is going to be a different type of story, and I would like to apologize to you first. Just hear me out until the end. That's all I ask for. My name is Andrea, and I'm a single mom. I don't tell you this like it's some badge of honor, and I'm expecting cookies, milk, and chocolate-covered snowflakes like most of the other people. They want your pats on the back and recognition. I just want some of your time if you can. I see motherhood as a burden. Necessary, yes, but it is still a burden. My son's name is Jesse. He's 11. That's 5th grade for the people who hate math. Jesse started the 5th grade this year like any other kid would. There was nervousness and lots of excitement. He was a happy-go-lucky sort of kid, full of life and energy. But everything changed after he met Stan on Tuesday. Stan was the late addition to Jesse's class, a transfer student from another district. Jesse's teacher sat Stan next to Jesse. When I picked up Jesse after school on Tuesday, he told me that Stan was his new best friend. He wasn't acting like himself though. He was pale and sweaty. I took his temp, but he wasn't running a fever. I asked about his day and all he would tell me was that Stan was his new best friend. Stan's my new best friend, Jesse would say. I know. I can't wait to meet him. I would say back. Mom, Stan is great. You should meet him. He's my new best friend. The best in the world. And we must have had the same conversation about 1,000 times that night. When I tucked Jesse in bed, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. He put his little hand in front of his face and wiggled his index finger, telling me to come closer. I leaned over and he put his hands to either side of his mouth. You know the little kid way of telling a secret? Well, I turned my head and he whispered something into my ear that chilled me. At that time, I didn't know why, but it did. He whispered, Mom, you believe me, right? I sat back up and looked down at him. Believe you? About what, honey? Stan, he said. He's my best friend. I nodded, and I took his temp once more. Again, he wasn't running a fever. I went to bed, but I couldn't really sleep that night. On Wednesday, when I pulled up to the school to drop Jesse off, he had this really weird look on his face and told me that he didn't want to go in. Are you feeling sick? I asked. No, he said. He was chewing on his bottom lip. This was something else I never seen him do. No, I need to go to school. He opened the car door and got out. No goodbye. No, I love you. Nothing. He went up the front steps of the school with his head down. I let off the brake and turned away to drive. A little boy was standing right in front of my car. 2 more seconds and I would have run him over. The boy was pale, with a mop of blonde hair that was almost white and bright blue eyes. He knocked on the hood of my car twice, waved once, and walked up the stairs to school. When I picked Jesse up after school on Wednesday, he looked a lot better. He was still a tiny bit pale, but he seemed happy. He told me all about his day. He told me about dinosaurs and music and math, and then he told me about recess. We had recess, Mom. You'll never guess what I did today. Tell me, I said, smiling to myself as I'm driving. I'm thinking maybe tag, football, keep away, all the things that I remember the boys doing at recess when I was that age. Something normal. I joined a church, Mom, he said. I frowned at this. A church? At recess? Jesse nodded. The church of Stan. I thought it must be some sort of new make-believe game that the kids were playing. What's the Church of Stan? I asked. It's a church. Stan's church, Mom. Jesse laughed like I was the silliest person in the world for asking that question. What do you guys do though? You know, as members? I asked. Lots of stuff. Today though, we just listened to Stan talk. He was saying some funny words and I got sleepy and dozed off. A bunch of us did. I pulled into the driveway at home and we got out. Was that it? I asked. Things really sounded weird, but the kids didn't seem to be doing anything wrong. Stan gave us flyers too, Mom. Jesse pulled out a crinkled up piece of paper and gave it to me. It was a piece of manila paper. 3 words written in black marker. Church of Stan. Again, weird, but nothing wrong. I just assumed the boys were playing make-believe, but I was wrong. When I picked Jesse up after school, I could tell that something was very wrong with him. He looked panicked and scared. What's going on, honey? I asked, reaching out to feel his forehead. No fever. We played the soul game, he said. Jesse's head was on a swivel. He couldn't sit still. He kept looking all around as we headed home. The soul game? I asked. Jesse just nodded and kept trying to look everywhere at once. Beads of sweat dotted his upper lip. What's the soul game? I asked. Jesse shook his head no and said nothing. Jesse, what's the soul game? I asked. I told him I didn't want to, but he said he wouldn't be my friend anymore if I didn't play. Who wouldn't be your friend? What about the teachers? Where were they? Jesse started breathing hard, but still answered. It happened in the church, he said. Then he whispered, the teachers are not allowed in the church. In the Church of Stan? I asked. Jesse nodded, and a tear slipped down his cheek. Jesse, what's the soul game? I'm your mom. You tell me right now, and I'll take care of everything, I said. I can't tell you, Mom. I can't. The rules are bad. They're so bad. And what about Stan? I asked. Is Stan gonna tell me? No, Jesse screamed this and scared me half to death. Don't ask him the rules. Mom, please. I pulled into the driveway, scared and confused. Mom, promise me. Jesse was crying now, terrified. I took him into my arms and rocked him. I hadn't rocked him like that since he had been in kindergarten. He fell asleep in my arms and I took him inside. I took him straight to his room and got him ready for bed. He just needs to sleep, I kept telling myself. That's all he needs. I put him to bed and ate dinner alone. I checked up on him around 9 when I went to bed. He seemed to be sleeping well, so I decided to go to sleep. I woke up to him screaming at the top of his lungs 18 minutes after midnight last night. I ran to his room, but he wasn't in his bed. I turned on the light and Jesse came flying out of the closet like something was chasing him. He latched onto my leg and kept screaming. I tried to calm him down and ask what was wrong at the same time. He wasn't making any sense. He kept screaming about the soul game. I kept asking what that was, but he wouldn't tell me. I tried to put him back to bed, but he would have none of it. Finally, I just took him to my room and he slept in my bed. Jesse fell asleep. I was lying on my side watching him, stroking his hair, when his eyes popped open and he stared right into mine. I'll tell you the rules after school tomorrow, he said. Then he closed his eyes. What was going on with Jesse? In the darkness, I stared at the ceiling for a long time before rolling over to my side and staring into the bathroom. You know how when you're on the edge of sleep, sometimes your leg will kick and jerk you awake, or you'll imagine you're falling. Or maybe that you just tripped over something and got jerked awake. That happened to me all last night. Only I kept waking up by seeing something in the doorway to the bathroom. Every time my eyes would start to close, I would see the dark outline of something large in the doorway and jerk awake. Of course, nothing would be there, and I would start falling asleep again. Then the outline would appear in the doorway once more, but it would be closer to me, like it had taken a baby step. This happened until morning. This morning on the way to school, Jesse seemed out of it. I felt the same way. I was even more exhausted. I thought about asking Jesse about what he had said right before he fell asleep, but I couldn't. I was afraid it would send him into a panic, so I just left it alone. We drove to school, and he didn't say a single word. He was acting like a robot. I ended up getting a phone call shortly after dropping him off to come pick him back up. He had thrown up in class. When I picked him up, he was the same. I did ask him several questions, but he only gave me grunts in response. The plan at home was to get him changed out of his dirty clothes and then take him to the doctor. He didn't say anything until we pulled into the driveway. "Mom, can Stan come over today?" he asked. He stared out the windshield at the garage door. "You're not feeling well, and do you really want him to come over?" I asked. "I want to meet this kid," but it didn't sound like Jesse wanted him over. I, however, wanted to get to the bottom of things. "Yes," Jesse said. "Alright, do you have his parents' number?" "He got permission from his parents, and they said it was fine," Jesse said. "Well, we have to wait until he's out of class, and I still want to talk to his parents." "Okay." Jesse got out of the car, and we walked into the house. "Do you have their number?" I asked as I shut the door. "No," he said. I started to ask him how I was supposed to call them if I didn't have their number. But right then, someone knocked on the door. I was standing right next to the door. I opened it, and standing in front of it was the pale little boy with the blue eyes and mop of white blonde hair that I almost ran over the other day. A little girl stood next to him with the same complexion. Yes?" I asked. "Hi, Driss," the little boy said. "Is Jesse home?" That little boy standing on my front door. Shouldn't know that name. It was my nickname from school, created on a drunken night among my girlfriends. It was short for Drissy. "No," I said. "That's fine," the little girl said. "My name is Devin, and you already know my brother's name." "Stan," I said. The little girl covered her mouth and giggled. Stan smiled and shrugged. "It's really quite simple. Rule number 1, don't walk past mirrors in the dark. And the second rule, don't leave any doors open when you go to bed tonight. Ask your son what rule number 3 is. And remember, a creak means that you're falling behind. A rustle means that you almost lost. When the lights go down, hopefully you won't see the dark shadow standing in the corner of the room. Hopefully you don't hear it breathing as your eyes shut and you begin to drift off. And if you hear a loud bang, well, hopefully you never hear it." Stan then turned and walked away with his sister. I stared at both of them and shook my head. I wasn't going to play their stupid little game. I walked into the house and closed the door, and I found Jesse sitting at the table, crying. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked. "I heard a loud sound," he whispered. My mouth went dry. "And when does the game end?" I asked. "It doesn't end," he whispered. "It never ends." My heart started beating faster. "What is the third rule?" His face fell, and he sucked in a deep breath. "Rule number 3. Knowing all 3 rules makes you a player." My stomach dropped. "What happens if you lose?" "When it's dark, You'll hear them coming. They like to let you know when they're getting close. Who? Stan and Devin, Jesse said. They'll reach out through a mirror or any open doorway and drag you. It's all a game. But how do you win? I asked. You win if you tell more people the rules to the soul game than the person that told you does. Like I said, hear me out. I apologize. But thanks for helping. Really, I mean it. Now I'm gonna enjoy my freedom, and I hope that you enjoy your night. Give Stan and Devin my best.